From CNN International, this is World News.
Good afternoon from the CNN Center in Atlanta. I'm Jonathan Mann.
And good evening from London. I'm Hillary Bowker. Coming up on this edition of World News, making contact. Just minutes from now, the Mars Pathfinder will attempt to land on the red planet.
And practicing contact. Russia's cosmonauts simulate repair work for the crippled Mir space station. Thanks for joining us. This is one of those moments scientists have been waiting for. Like nervous parents, they've been watching the Mars Pathfinder move through millions of kilometers of space headed to the red planet. And right now, the spacecraft should be approaching its final descent. Joining us to explain what to expect is Kurt Grimaud, a professor of aerospace engineering at the University of Oklahoma. Professor, thanks so much for being with us. You and your team have prepared some sophisticated animations. Talk us through these last few minutes as Pathfinder makes its way to Mars.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. The spacecraft is only 7 to 8 minutes from landing on the surface. The animations were done in order to help NASA and JPL instruct the people around the world about what is actually happening. It's impossible to put a camera up there in space and be able to show it real time, and so the next best thing is to have photorealistic animation done.
Okay, so now this package coming from Earth is whizzing towards Mars. I think we can see it there. What are we watching?
Yes, this is just before the tether gets cut and the rockets on the back shell gets fired to get it out of the way. You'll see those fire there. That's simply to get the parachute out of the way as the airbags have been inflated, moving down to the surface, and it's bouncing along the surface, trying to come to a rest.
How high is it bouncing right now?
It can range anywhere from 3 or 4 stories high, maybe up to 6 or 7 stories high. The gravity on Mars is only 1/3 that of Earth. The most important reason why it bounces a lot is that those airbags are like super balls, that they're made out of a very stiff material that is highly inflated, and it'll bounce very high.
What is going to happen now? The thing will come to rest and take us through what they're hoping will happen.
After 5 to 10 minutes, it'll finally come to a rest. It'll take over an hour to deflate and to retract the airbags. As that is being come to a stop, there it shows the airbags deflated. After they're deflated and pulled back in, then it tries to open itself up. And it doesn't matter what side or what pedal it lands on, it'll always ride itself back up. The reason the airbags had to be pulled in is so that when the rover moves off one of the pedals, it will not get tangled up in the airbag. So
is this a sure thing? It looks like they've thought it pretty well through. Are they very confident that this is going to work and everything's going to make this enormous journey without any problems?
They are as confident as you can ever be with a space program. There's always something that could possibly go wrong. They've done extensively testing, both on Earth and especially test chambers for bouncing of the airbags and opening up the pedals and having the rover move off.
Now, while we're talking, we're watching this move ahead. We're looking at the rover. Is this going to happen as quickly as all of this? Is this expected the rover to start moving within just the next few minutes?
The rover is the very last thing that will happen on the initial day if everything else goes correct. So it'll take over 12 hours before the rover actually will leave the pedal, if it's in a condition to do so.
Right now, the Pathfinder is still on its way. We have seen it land. It looked like it was coming down rather gently, but it's going very fast now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's going 7.5 kilometers per second. You can travel a lot of distance in 1 second, 7 kilometers. When it comes through the atmosphere, it'll slow down to 500 meters per second. The parachutes will open, and after that, it'll slow down to maybe 40 or 50 meters per second. When it impacts the surface, it'll be going at about 30 to 40 meters per second, and that's one reason why it bounces so much. It is moving the speed of a car when it hits the surface.
We're going to go now to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, and listen in because they're hard at work there and awaiting news of the landing as well. Let's listen in. I'm curious about something while they're working and waiting. They're now just 3 minutes away from there.
In about 15 seconds, the events will follow will occur in rapid succession under the control of the onboard software. I'll report these events as they are expected to occur.
If you're just joining us, we're now approximately 2 minutes and 20 seconds from the landing that's been scheduled.
As this landing takes place, it's very difficult to get this information back as it's going through the atmosphere. Some of the radio waves may not be in full power and be able to get receptions, but it seems at this point that they are getting information back as it's going through.
It's easy to take all of this for granted. We're so used to seeing pictures from the space shuttle. We're so used to seeing pictures from the space shuttle, but really they have very little information.
Slowing down rapidly because of parachute deployment. The heat shield should separate in about 3, 2, 1, 0 seconds.
After the heat shield separates, the parachute is slowing it down. The airbags.
The next event is lander separation. That should occur in about 5 seconds. When that occurs, the lander will descend in about 10 seconds down the bridle. Lander separation should have occurred right about now.
You'll notice they say should a lot. Many of these information is pre-programmed, and they're not exactly sure when it's actually happening.
We should be switching from one antenna to another antenna under a flight software control. This is an antenna that proves our ability to see the signal during this descent phase.
So is any human being now in control of this?
No, it is not.
Is any earthbound computer now telling them what to do?
No, the best we can do is get information back from the spacecraft, and that in itself is difficult.
This is an autonomous entity that's acting on its own intelligence and all of the machinery they could put inside, but it's far beyond anyone's ability to help or control.
I'm not sure if I'd say intelligence, but it's programmed. It's a computer that has a sequence of events that it's following.
While we're waiting, and while they're waiting, I've got a question for you.
The spacecraft should be approximately a mile above the surface of Mars. There's a lot of uncertainty in the timing from here on out because of the variation in the atmosphere.
The atmosphere, this is my question. Mars, if I've read correctly, has an atmosphere only 1% as dense as Earth's. How does a parachute work when there isn't air or something to slow the craft down?
Very good question. It does not work hardly at all, but it does add some slowing, so they use it. If they would work like a parachute on Earth, they would not need the airbags to bounce along. They could just do a gentle drop.
Okay, let's listen in now. I'm just struck by what we're seeing now. This is a moment that they've been working for years, but it comes down to a bunch of guys, ladies and gentlemen, walking around with their arms folded and their hands in their pockets, waiting for news like expectant fathers, really.
It's a very good analogy, is you have to receive information, you cannot help it in any way. What's going to happen is going to happen, and all you're doing is finding out if it was successful or not.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I am told
that a signal is barely visible.
They are getting a signal back. That is great.
It's a very good sign, everybody.
The signal has been received. It means that the spacecraft is intact. At least it has enough information to be able to send a signal out. It does not mean that everything is operational. That will only tell over the next 12 hours as they start testing each piece of equipment, getting the big antennas out to be able to broadcast pictures.
But what you're seeing now is, as close as we can show you, visual evidence that Pathfinder has landed in one piece with at least enough of its technology intact to phone home and tell everyone that it is okay.
Yes. Now the real fun begins, where you start doing engineering experiments, science experiments, to find more information about Mars, the planet itself.
Now, there was enormous confidence going into this mission that this was going to work. In the last few days, we saw some very confident scientists saying that they really were feeling very positive. But in terms of engineering and science and the hard work that these people do, how hard has it been to get something successfully landed on Mars?
It's probably as difficult as any mission has been. The nice thing about this one is that it's a smaller one, it's compact. These people are much closer together. It is like a small company coming out with a new wonderful program. They've all worked very hard. It's a lot of energetic people trying to pull this thing off against a lot of odds, and you get very nice products and success when you have that kind of a group working together.
As it would expect it to do after it rolls to a stop. We are now in a blackout situation where the spacecraft will essentially begin to retract airbags. This process takes a little over an hour. Hopefully, we may see a signal when that finishes up. We will keep our eyes peeled, of course. Seeing a signal from the surface of Mars is actually the hard part.
The signal is extremely weak, and for them to be able to receive a signal is a difficult and wonderful thing to have.
What was the signal that made them so excited? Was it a little beeping noise? Was it a computer entry physically or technologically? Exactly what did they get?
It's almost like the static you would have on the FM radio, and the level of the static will tell them some information. That is about all that they're getting. The static is enough different than the normal static that they can identify that it was a signal made from Mars.
It's an extraordinary thing. Something created on this world has now gone to another world. Let me ask you, we can't get a sense of it watching these gentlemen in their air-conditioned quarters, but what kind of conditions have greeted Pathfinder? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it dark? Is it bright? Is it sunny? Do we know what the weather is like there?
They landed in the night side. It will dawn in about 3 more hours. At nighttime, it can get as cold as 100 degrees centigrade below zero. The warmest it'll get is about 40 degrees above 0 centigrade. So it's very cold. They have to have special warmers in the rover and in the lander to make sure that the electronics continue working and that the battery power will be conserved.
One of the extraordinary things looking at this is that these experts are really as close as anyone has ever come to Mars. They're doing this extraordinary project. Oh, let's listen to what they're saying. These are the greatest living experts on Mars, one would imagine. How much does anyone really know about that planet?
The duration of this signal should tell us a little bit about what the software thinks the spacecraft is, how the spacecraft is oriented.
20 years ago was the last time we had significant information come from Mars. So it's over 20 years since we have any new information other than what the Hubble telescope has been able to give us. So we only know maybe 2 or 3% of what Mars may have to offer to us over the next 20, 30 years as we send 10 more missions to Mars.
For those who are interested, the spacecraft successfully fired off 41 pyrotechnic devices that all had to work perfectly on the 4th of July.
Telecom reports solid-state power amp off.
Those pyrotechnic devices blow bolts so that the airbags can be retracted inward. You can't get up there with a wrench and unscrew things. You have to have small explosions to unlock bolts and to get things to start working.
They noted with glee that this is, of course, the 4th of July.
Communications folks to calculate how long that signal was active, maybe give us an idea how long what orientation the spacecraft is in. The signals that are possible are either you're on the base pedal, which means that the spacecraft does not have to roll over, or it's on a side, in which case it will right itself automatically.
We have a model. You have kindly brought a model of the landing craft. I don't know if we can get a tighter picture of it, but if we can, why don't we put it, there we go. We're moving in and out of the shot, there we go. Show us what it is that is going to happen. There was some talk about the pedals and about whether they would be able to...
This is the heat shield that went through the atmosphere and was discarded. This here is what landed on Mars. It does not have the airbags around. Currently, it's sitting on Mars in some configuration with large airbags on the side. Those are now being deflated, and they'll be pulled into the surface. After about 3 hours, these leaves or petals will open up.
An ingenious thing about them, I'm going to interrupt you, they didn't know which side it was going to land on, and that's part of the design here. Show us...
That's correct. The way this thing was designed is that it could land on any one of the petals, and it will correct itself with these motors that open up the leaves. They're strong enough that they can turn the whole lander around, and then the other two leaves will open up. There's only one concern that they may have, and I'm sure many of the people watching may also ask, what happens if it lands on its top? How does it open up? This is like trying to balance a pencil on your finger, and it's more than likely going to tip over. If it does not, they can jiggle these leaves to try to jar it off to one side and fall over.
So one of the things they're waiting to find out right now, I guess, is how it's landed on which side.
That's correct.
There was also some talk about the craft itself orienting itself. How does it do that in a strange world? It doesn't know where it's facing, it doesn't know how it's landed. How does it figure out and tell the experts back home where it is?
The best way to orient yourself in space is to be able to know where the sun is. After the airbags have been retracted, the pedals have been opened, this camera device here will start moving around and look for the sun. As soon as it locates the sun, then it knows exactly where it's at, what angle it's at, where the Earth is at, and it can send up their high-gain antenna here to be able to get high-speed transmission back to Earth, and that's when the pictures will actually start being sent.
This relates back to some of the delay that we've been hearing about because, once again, as you've mentioned, it's night on Mars right now.
Yes. When these pedals are open, it'll be around dawn. That's when they'll have the low-gain antenna try to communicate to Earth. After that, then they will use the camera to locate the sun, tell them where to point the high-gain antenna. After they get the high-gain antenna working, they can transmit back nice pictures to look around to see what the environment is like. If that's successful, then they'll contemplate sending off the rover off the pedal and move just a few meters away from the lander, and that would be a very successful first day if they can get that lander off, or the rover off the pedal.
For the time being, enormous technology, enormous effort that now rests on Mars in a bundle of balloons, and they're waiting for the sun to come up. Professor Grimal of University of Oklahoma, thanks for being with us. Stay with us. We're going to have to take a break, but we'll be back in a moment.
Spacecraft has landed on. No speculation.
With the MCI calling card, you just pick up the phone and pick up the miles.
Well, for those of you who are just joining us, it appears that the Pathfinder has landed on Mars on time. Everything appears to be working well. And of course, as we get any news on what's going on, we'll bring it to you here on CNN. Well, in another part of the galaxy, things are running a little bit behind schedule. Russian space officials say they're delaying repairs to their Mir space station for an extra week until at least July 17th. They want to give the Mir crew extra time to practice repairing a damaged module known as Spectre. CNN's Moscow bureau chief, Jill Doherty, has this report.
At Star City, the cosmonaut training center outside Moscow, two of Russia's most experienced spacemen are simulating underwater the complex repair job their Mir colleagues are practicing for in space. The famous Sergei Krikalev, the first Russian cosmonaut to live aboard a U.S. space shuttle, is leading the exercises. He'll be the chief advisor when the cosmonauts on the Mir space station carry out the repairs for real less than 2 weeks from now. It's complex, difficult work, and because of that, Mission Control is giving the cosmonauts an extra 6 or 7 days to prepare.
It will be necessary to reconnect a number of power supplies. Wearing gloves on the suit, believe me, I've been in space 8 times, makes the work very complex.
The simulation laboratory watches every move.
The most important task is to connect the electricity plugs from the solar panels. They're important for the life support, and there are 9 of them, 8 of them located inside the module, and the 9th on the outside, and they have to locate them.
Back in space, the Mir crew had more problems. The gyro system that keeps the space station's solar panels pointed at the sun failed again. Without that system, the crew has to fire rocket engines periodically, but that burns up fuel. Mission Control said it found the cause of the problem and hoped the crew could repair it soon. Meanwhile, specially crafted repair parts for the disabled Spectre module, including a custom-designed hatch, will be launched toward the Mir this Saturday, expected to dock with it Monday. Jill Doherty, CNN, Moscow.
Still to come on World News, a shadow is cast over sunflowers and other. NASA scientists have reason to cheer. The Mars Pathfinder has landed on the red planet. The entry, descent, and landing about half an hour ago went exactly according to plan. The U.S. spacecraft parachuted through the red planet's atmosphere and landed on an airbag cushion. NASA received signals from the spacecraft as it entered Mars's atmosphere and as it landed, but is not to receive any more communications from the Pathfinder for a few hours. The spacecraft is to release what's known as the Sojourner Rover, that vehicle designed to creep along the terrain and send pictures and data back to Earth. Scientists have been nervously waiting this event, but one of the scientists who's been careful enough and kind enough to join us to talk about it is Kurt Grimal of the University of Oklahoma. Thanks for staying around to talk to us about it.
Thank you.
If you were watching before, we broke away to go to commercial and then went to a live picture from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory where scientists cheered for a new reason. They were told that the Pathfinder had landed on the base pedal. What is it that made them so happy about that?
Here is a model of the lander as it's currently resting on the surface of Mars. The only thing missing is the large airbags that have deflated and they're going to be pulled into the pedals. There is 4 different sides to this. This is called the base because if it opens up on the base, the other pedals will go off to the sides, and the base has the main equipment at the center.
So if they're rolling the dice, and this is a 4-sided dice, they got the best possible roll, I guess.
Yes. Another option would be on one of the pedals, in which then it would have to correct itself, which is a little more tricky to do. They certainly designed it for that, but by having it land on its base at the first time, it solves a lot of other problems.
Now we're looking at this little model. It's a cute little thing. Give us a sense of the real scale of this. How big is the total package and the crucial rover on which so much rests? How big are they?
Well, to compare it to my hand here, this is a 1/10 model, so it would not be much bigger than the size of this table when it fully opens up. This rover itself is no bigger than a microwave oven. It's approximately a ½ meter long and 1/3 meter wide and only maybe 20 centimeters high.
So this has been traveling through hundreds of thousands of kilometers of space, essentially to get something the size of a child's wagon to Mars, or
yes.
smaller.
But that's the nice, exciting thing about this, is every child in the world can relate to their own little remote control toy that many of us have played with in our younger years. This is about the same size. And just like we would play with a remote control toy, the NASA engineers now get to play with their $25 million remote control toy.
Well, I want to ask you more about that. Are they literally, is there one lucky kid at NASA sitting with a joystick that's going to be telling us where to go?
There's 3 or 4 that will be operating the rover, but it's not quite like when we were young and we would push it forward and immediately would go forward. There is a 10-minute time delay, so that if we say go forward, in 10 minutes it'll go forward. If there's a cliff and we say stop, 10 minutes, it'll stop, hopefully not going over the cliff. Because of those problems, they have to have a lot of the intelligence built right into the rover. So it'll point to a direction and say, we want to go look at that rock. The rover has enough computer power and enough decision-making ability to be able to know the right path to get to that rock.
Now, as we're looking at this model, I don't know if anyone, well, we can see the picture. Those beautiful blue things, that's not just a colorful covering, is it? That's actually going to be an important part of the operation, the blue surfaces that we're seeing.
That's a solar panel, and one of the critical things about this mission is the power. They don't have enough, and they try to get as much power as they possibly can, so the whole top surface is a solar panel. That solar panel will help operate equipment on the rover. It'll also charge the batteries that are on the rover. Without that, they will not be able to have an extended mission. There is enough power in the batteries to go 7 days, but if they want to go beyond the 7 days, they're going to have to draw heavily upon these solar panels to recharge the batteries and to keep it going.
Right now, though, once again, it is a cold night on Mars that has welcomed the rover and the Pathfinder. Dr. Kurt Grimal, I hope you'll be with us some more in the hours to come. I am told you will, to explain all of this mission as it proceeds. For now, we thank you very much for your expertise.
Thank you.
Hillary?
Well, John, you know your kids are going to want a copy of this little rover. And it's not just a $25 million toy. It is, of course, the focus of Pathfinder's mission, and it is supposed to collect and chart data from the planet's surface. Well, it will be done from the Sojourner buggy, as we just said. And CNN's John Zarella is going to report on how that vehicle came about.
There have been big ones. There have been little ones. For years now, rovers of all sizes and shapes have run over rocks, cruised along desert landscapes. They've been tested and redesigned over and over again. Finally, this. Sojourner is what engineers and scientists chose to send to Mars. This is where much of its testing took place. the sandbox at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. Sojourner, a 6-wheeled, 23-pound solar-powered rover, is the centerpiece of NASA's Pathfinder mission.
This will be one of the first images we'll get down from Mars. This is obviously of our test bed, but what we want to look at is make sure that these airbags are underneath where the ramp would deploy here.
If the lander and Sojourner survive the airbag landing on Mars, Sojourner will begin its snail's pace crawl across the surface. Once it finds a rock scientists back on Earth find interesting, the rover's alpha proton X-ray spectrometer will spend up to 10 hours analyzing the composition.
The rover stops the last thing in the day, puts the spectrometer on the rock or on the ground, and it just collects data all night long, and then by the time the sun comes up the next morning, the rover's ready to go off and move again.
With the ability to analyze 1 rock a day, engineers and geologists hope the little vehicle just keeps on going and going. This is the Mars Yard. Scientists and engineers here have already forgotten about Pathfinder and are working on the next generation of Mars rovers. This is Rocky 7, the latest in mini rovers. It looks like Sojourner, but is far more autonomous.
As a rover in the future moves away from the lander, it needs to be able to look at the terrain all by itself and tell itself where to go.
Rocky 7, or something similar, will fly to Mars in 2001. It will gather rocks and wait there until 2005. That's when NASA plans to send a vehicle to pick up the samples and bring them back to Earth. John Zarella, CNN, Pasadena, California.
Fascinating. Well, the surface of Mars may be a subject of intense scrutiny to scientists, but to show business, well, it's well-charted territory. CNN's Dennis Michael looks at the view of Mars from Hollywood.
Just how long have we been receiving these mysterious signals from outer space?
We've been hearing from Mars since the silent movie era and giving about as much respect to our planetary next-door neighbor as the Ricardos gave the Mertzes.
Mars is about to run out of air.
Since Lobstermen from Mars is a humorous movie within a movie, presumably its makers knew that there is no air on Mars, but higher-class writers have made that mistake as well. Ray Bradbury even provided the red planet with a breathable atmosphere in his fantasy anthology, The Martian Chronicles.
They introduced me out at Caltech and say, here's the guy that put oxygen on Mars, huh? And it doesn't exist. But they accept it because they're romantics, too.
In fact, storytellers, and Hollywood in particular, have turned the canals and plains of Mars into something of a Rorschach blot. Look at Angry Red Planet, which says a whole lot more about Earthlings than it does about any Martians.
Mars is also a place where we've projected our fears, our concerns, our dreams, our hopes. Mars is many things, and it should be many things. It's a symbol as well as a planet.
The planet named after the god of war has certainly declared war on Earth many times, from War of the Worlds to Invaders from Mars, and even beach movie regular Tommy Kirk had his turn as a Martian in what may have been the lowest point in Earth-Mars relations. Mars needs women.
The exotic dancer is secured.
The Martians invaded as recently as last winter with Tim Burton's Mars Attacks, but that time at least the Martians had a sense of humor.
Martin, where are you? On television.
It wasn't an invasion from Mars so much as a reconnaissance mission when My Favorite Martian established a beachhead on television in the 60s. Incidentally, a My Favorite Martian movie is now in the works. Now, however, most science fiction writers know Mars as a place to be invaded rather than the source of invaders. Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, led a revolt of Martian colonists in Total Recall. Mars is, after all, part of the local neighborhood.
If you look at an image taken from the surface of Mars, it's Death Valley. It's so familiar. We've been there before. We feel that we know. It's not like Venus, which is so obviously unhospitable and alien. There's a kind of homey quality to Mars.
That is, as long as you remember to bring your own air. Dennis Michael, CNN Entertainment News, Hollywood.
I loved all of those movies. Let's get up to date now with the latest in international sports. Here's CNN's Scott Engler.
The transfer of Brazilian superstar Ronaldo to Inter Milan.
An All-American anniversary.
Comes open, then the low-gain antenna will send a signal out trying to locate the Earth, communicate with Earth. Earth will come back and tell it that it's where it's at. At that point, it'll take a camera picture of the horizon trying to find where the sun is. Finding the sun is important. It'll give the location of the spacecraft so that it can point its high-gain antenna The high-gain antenna will allow it to communicate much quicker and faster. After the high-gain antenna is pointed directly back to the Earth, the camera will once again be activated and be able to take black and white pictures and then later color pictures. If that all goes well, then they'll make a decision whether to send the rover out off the pedal into a nearby area to start analyzing the soil. But that'll be the last thing that will be accomplished today if everything else goes well.
The question is, this was above all a test of technology. What have we learned so far?
Well, the airbag technology works. That the lander did not break into a number of pieces, that it's landed on Mars. The next part of technology that will be tested is actually the rover, to be able to get it off the panel and be able to move around and analyze soil. Those are the two big engineering feats that they're trying to prove on this particular landing.
Now, that rover partly moves around with its own artificial intelligence and partly it's told what to do by remote from the scientists in Pasadena, California.
Yes, it's a nice mixture of both. The reason why they cannot totally control it is because there's a 10-minute time lag. If it was heading towards a cliff and they were being remotely controlled and you said stop, it'd take 10 minutes before it stopped and it could go over that cliff. So they have to have some type of artificial intelligence in the computer so they can make decisions on its own without being told. It'll be told where to go to, but it'll have to figure out how to get there.
How does it figure out how to get there?
There's been a lot of computer scientists programming its intelligence. It has a very powerful computer on board. In the front, there are 5 lasers that'll detect different sizes of rocks, where they're going to, what they are, how big they are, if they should go over them, or whether they should go around them.
Now, the part of Mars where the Pathfinder is, and hopefully the rover will travel around, was very carefully chosen. What's special about this? Why have they chosen this area?
For one reason is they would like to know more about the landscape of where they thought large amounts of water have rushed across the surface or formed rivers. The area here is a riverbed and a delta area. The other reason why the delta area is nice is that it's flat and will have very few craters and large rocks. If it had a lot of deep crevices and rocks and canyons, it could damage the lander when it was bouncing along. Furthermore, it could get stuck and not be able to have the rover go out. So they wanted an exciting site, but yet one that was relatively flat and rock-free.
Thanks to Kurt Grumol, Aerospace Engineering Professor at the University of Oklahoma. Pictures should be arriving within the next 2.5 hours from Mars. Our guest will also be appearing on Insight Special, Exploring the Red Planet. How do we do it? That'll be Insight on CNN, also about 2 hours from now. The crew of the Mir space station will have to wait a little longer to attempt their repairs. This after Russian engineers spent some time underwater trying
ud rumsonden Pathfinder, eller på dansk stifinder. Den har nu været 7 måneder undervejs og landet omkring kl. 19 dansk tid her til aften. Alt tyder på, at landingen forløb perfekt, men de NASA-teknikere, der følger ekspeditionen på tætteste hold, kan først om en times tid komme i kontakt med sonden.
Det er sådan, at den er en form for automatisk mode i øjeblikket, men den er ved at vågne, så at sige, sådan at vi om vel en times tid fra nu af, godt og vel, er i stand til at kommunikere med den.
En gruppe danske forskere har fulgt projektet helt fra starten. De har udviklet en speciel magnet, som er med på Mars. Den skal opsamle støv, og ved at sende billeder af støvet tilbage til jorden, kan de danske forskere blandt andet opklare, om der har været liv på planeten.
Vi kan lære noget om Mars-overfladens udvikling, og det er et led i det store spørgsmål om for eksempel der har også udviklet sig liv på overfladen af Mars.
I dag er planeten tør, men sådan har det måske ikke altid været. Ved at undersøge Mars-støvet kan danskerne regne sig frem til, om der tidligere har været hav eller floder, som vi kender det her fra jorden.
Altid der, hvor man har fundet vandet, har man også fundet liv. Så derfor regner vi med, at liv og vand er meget tæt knyttet til hinanden.
Så hvis der har været vand på Mars, så tror du også, at der måske er en sandsynlighed for, at der også har været liv?
Altså, jeg mener, at det er sandsynligt, at der opstår liv på Mars på et eller andet tidspunkt.
Spørgsmålet om liv i rummet har altid fascineret os mennesker. Her er det H.G. Wells version i Klodernes kamp fra 50'erne. Men hvis der har været liv på Mars, er forskerne enige om, at det har været langt mere primitivt. Og Pathfinder har der også en anden vigtig mission, nemlig at gøre klar til bemandede Mars-ekspeditioner.
Hvis det her fungerer, så vil en hel flåde af tilsvarende fartøjer blive sendt afsted inden for de næste 10 år. Og det formål er ganske enkelt at dække Mars ind både med geologiske og meteorologiske målstationer, som man er velforberedt til vi om 20-25 år kan landsætte de første astronauter på overfladen af vores naboplanet.
Denne Mars-ekspedition vil alt inklusive kunne holdes på en pris af omkring 1,8 milliarder kroner. En magtkamp i den bosniske...
Anticipation is building for the first transmission of pictures and the start of the six-wheeled Rover's exploration. CNN's John Harleman, our space expert, joins us now from CNN Center in Atlanta to tell us more. John?
Hillary, this is one of those stories that really plays well on the CNN International Network, and if we had viewers on Mars, they'd be interested in watching it as well. And maybe we do. How do we know for sure? At any rate, the Pathfinder has plopped itself down on the surface of Mars. Those huge airbags have deflated. Right now on NASA television, there is a picture in a sandbox at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that shows precisely what we would be looking at if we had a camera somewhere on the surface of Mars looking back at the Pathfinder. That's what it looks like. The airbags have all deflated. The three triangular things on the three corners of this are solar panels that are just beginning to pick up the first light of the Martian sunrise at the landing zone on the Martian surface. And what we anticipate will happen, if you look at that live picture from the Jet Propulsion Lab, it's not of Mars, it is of an identical Martian rover to the one that is on the surface of Mars right now. Right at the top, you can see a thing that looks like a little white radio antenna, which is, by the way, precisely what that white thing is. That radio antenna is communicating with the Earth already. The Deep Space Network is picking up signals from it. And about 1 hour and 7 minutes from right now, they anticipate that there will be a stream of data. They are calling it digital data, and they're saying it may not have photographic quality representations, but it will be able to tell us what the weather is like on Mars right now, coming from that antenna down here to the Earth. There's another antenna, a larger one, looks more like a satellite dish, which will try to line itself up with the Earth and then start beaming back massive amounts of data to the Earth, which would mean that by 3 hours from now, the first color photograph, a huge panoramic view of the Martian surface, would be beamed down here to the Earth. This is what happened over the past 3 hours since this thing broke through the Martian atmosphere and bounced around on its balloons on the surface of Mars. Actually, this is what's happened in the past 45 minutes. There was another big cheer at Mission Control at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory when there was confirmation that this sequence of events was taking place. Now, that particular dish antenna is looking for the sun. As soon as it finds the sun, which we think it will do any minute, it will begin beaming a stream of data, a high-speed stream of data down to Earth. Streams of data don't sound very sexy, but the pictures that go with it will be, we are told. The next thing that's going to happen today is that this little six-wheel robot will turn on its laser beam eyeballs and its TV cameras and will begin moving out over the Martian surface. The way this thing works is when those laser beams are interrupted as they reflect back into the rover gets a message that, hey, there's something we need to worry about. And according to Donna Shirley, who is the mission manager for all of the Mars exploration missions, this thing thinks like a bug rather than a human. It has been given the artificial intelligence of a cockroach. What a cockroach would do if it went up to something like this on the floor is it would bang into it, then turn around and work its way around. That's what the rover does. What you just saw happen, the thing that looked like a coffee can coming out of the side and touching a rock, was actually taking a sample of that rock to find out what it is made of. And that's the main job of this Sojourner rover, as it is called. It goes around on the surface of Mars, looks at rocks, and tells people down here what the rocks are made of. There may be some practical application in all this. For years, people on Earth have said, we bet there's some things on Mars that could be used for fuel, either fuel for rocket ships, fuel to keep people alive during the cold period up on Mars. And that's what the Sojourner rover will try to find out on this trip. What are those rocks made of, really? Are they things that could be broken down in a chemical analysis and things like that? So that's what's going on the surface of Mars. At the beginning of your show, Hillary, you showed some pictures of cheering people at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory
the human emotion of this is a lot neater, really, to me at this point in my day than all the nice animations and things. Let's go back to that again and just look at these people. All of them are technicians and engineers, not the kind of people who hug and kiss each other at work all the time. And just look at their reaction when all this unfolded just a few hours ago. The guy in the white shirt in the middle, one of the chief scientists on this project, been working on this for decades of his life. He is obviously ecstatic that everything is going so well. The miracle to me in all
John,
this...
I just want to jump in for a second.
Sure.
You say he's been working on this for a decade. How long? I mean, we know it's taken 7 months for Pathfinder to make it to Mars, but how long, actually, have people been working on this project?
On this particular rover, this particular idea for getting to Mars, it's been about more than 5 years. I was talking here on CNN International with one of the program scientists a few hours ago, and he said that he got the plan, minute by minute, what was going to happen on the surface of Mars 4 years ago. And they have been tinkering with that plan, fine-tuning it, making sure that they had all the equipment to do the things they wanted to do for that long a period of time. You can only launch things to Mars every 2 years, and it's a pretty narrow window. End of November, beginning of December is when you can launch things from the Earth that'll make it to Mars without using up more fuel than is possible to put in the rockets to ship them there. So they have 2 more years of work to do before the next round of satellites goes up to Mars, and they're working on them and have been for some years in the past as well.
Well, I know we'll keep coming back to you for more news on this particular mission. John, thanks very much. John Holloman joining us there from CNN Center in Atlanta. And we will have much more on the Mars mission on Insight in about 20 minutes. Then about an hour from now, the first data is expected to be transmitted, and we will have live coverage. But now, another bit of space news. Russia's Mission Control is giving the crew of Mir, the space station, an extra 6 days to prepare for repairs. Russia's most famous cosmonaut, Sergei Krikalev, will be the chief advisor when the repair work begins in less than 2 weeks. For now, Krikalev is leading training exercises at Russia's Star City, simulating the repair work underwater. A collision last week damaged the Spectre module and some of the solar panels that help power the space station.
News and information are essential for today's travelers. Make certain you choose one of these fine CNN International Partner hotels next time you travel. For more information about these and other partner hotels, turn to page 300 on CNN Text where available.
On World Business Today, the legal attack on the tobacco industry hits the UK. Britain's High Court gives the green light to an anti-tobacco class action lawsuit. We'll look at what it means for British tobacco companies, only on CNN International.
On CNN International's Future Watch, get on an elevator going up, but soon you could be moving in another direction, rolling sideways into the future, only on CNN International.
This is CNN International.
A weak signal, a modest celebration, a daunting challenge achieved. Scientists learned Pathfinder made it to Mars in one piece and should soon be sending back pictures. Hello and welcome. If there is life on Mars, it may have reason to be alarmed. Just a short time ago, a box bundled in balloons came hurtling towards the planet. It slowed from the speed of a rocket to a bullet and then slammed into the surface about as fast as a car with no brakes. And it all went according to plan. On our program today, Pathfinder and the mission to Mars. We begin with CNN's Mark Bernheimer.
It's a very good sign, everybody.
It was the moment they'd been waiting for, and it came right on time. Pathfinder landed, apparently safely, on the Martian surface.
We're sitting on the base pedal, which is the bottom of the lander, absolutely perfect position, absolutely where we wanted to be. The fact that we could hear it all the way to that point and get the signal is miraculous.
Pathfinder was the first lander designed to literally crash into the surface of Mars, cushioned by a cocoon of airbags. Assuming everything goes as planned, the rest of the mission will depend on Pathfinder's passenger, a pint-sized scientist, a coffee table on wheels called Sojourner, which will roll off the lander's blooming solar panels and begin the lonely task of exploring Mars. Through a camera and a high-tech soil analyzer, Sojourner is expected to answer crucial questions for scientists a world away.
You know, what is Mars made of at just the most basic? You know, here's this whole planet and we don't have a clue as to what it is, you know.
The Pathfinder project is not designed to look for life on Mars. Scientists already know the surface of the planet has no water, therefore no life. Any signs of life deep below the planet's surface would be well out of Sojourner's reach.
You need a dozen missions to be able to define the environments and then go to the very specific places where you could begin those very specific to answer those specific questions. Pathfinder's the wrong mission to do that.
But, say scientists, Pathfinder could be, and likely will be, the first step. Scientists know it's not quite time for celebrations just yet. At a relatively cheap price of $265 million, the Pathfinder project was built without backup systems. If anything goes wrong from this point on in, there will be no way to rectify that problem. Mark Bernheimer, CNN, Pasadena, California.
Joining us now from Pathfinder Mission Headquarters at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena is CNN's John Zarella. John?
Good afternoon, Jonathan. Everything here is going better than anyone could have expected. That's the real good news. Of course, the engineers here and the scientists are still, you know, things can still go wrong. There's a lot of things that have to happen yet, but so far everything looks wonderful. None of them could be happier, and here's their bumper sticker, Mars or bust, and they made it. So I guess now the key is Sojourner, the rover, getting it off the lander later this evening, and that's going to be another exciting moment. We'll be building up to that throughout the day. And of course, one of the key people, and there are many, many of them in this mission, is Matthew Golombek. And Matthew is a project scientist, and we spoke last night, and as I said to you, you were so confident. You knew something everybody else didn't know. You guys made it, and it looked great.
The whole project knew it. We all knew that if you work this hard and you're committed to this with this amount, that it would work.
In that control room, give us a sense, if you can, I know it's difficult, what the emotions were as you were getting that data back from the vehicle, that it was working.
I mean, elation, but almost stunned that we got the signal all the way down. We thought it would be weak. We figured it might not even be there. We might have to wait until 2 this afternoon to actually get the first true confident signal. And we got it all. We got the whole thing all the way down. We know which pedal it wound up on. We know exactly when the airbags retracted and when it opened up. And we got the low gain antenna beep to us, implying that our telemetry system's operating.
What is the next big event coming up, and when is that going to take place?
Well, we're waiting for the Earth to get high enough in the Martian sky for that low-gain antenna to send us actual data about the internal workings of the spacecraft. Is it healthy? What are the temperatures? Are the solar panels working? Is everything ready to go? And when we get that and we ascertain its health, we then decide to unlatch certain things and start it on its job.
Matthew, Matthew, real quick, first picture.
First picture expected around 4:30 this afternoon if
Pacific
we get
time.
Yes, if we get the high gain antenna, which is also another big step here.
Matthew, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Talk to you again in a minute. So, a lot of things for the viewers around the world to keep close tabs to. Big events still to unfold here throughout the course of the day. Jonathan.
John Zarella in Pasadena, thanks very much. I guess that first picture will come our way in 3 hours' time. When we come back, though, more on the Pathfinder and its passenger, that curious little cart called Sojourner. Stay with us. Welcome back. In order to put Pathfinder on Mars, NASA had to design a ship that could travel faster than 7 kilometers per second on its 7-month journey. And after flying through about 500 million kilometers of space, it had to enter the Martian atmosphere in just the right way or it would burn up or bounce off. And that was only getting it there. How did they do it? Joining us now is Kurt Grimal, a professor of aerospace engineering at the University of Oklahoma. He is also the man who designed all of the animations we've been looking at today. Professor, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Let me ask you first of all about the landing site. How did they choose where to put Pathfinder, and how close did they get to actually putting it there?
Well, they're torn between two different types of locations. One that's exciting and mountainous and deep canyons, but that's very dangerous to land a balloon type or airbag type lander. The other extreme is a very flat, no rocks. They lean towards going to a river delta, so it'd be flat with minimal amount of large rocks.
Now, you say a river delta. They didn't land in water, though, did they?
No, they did not. But on the surface of Mars, there is large landscapes that looks as if a river had once run through it and gouged great riverbeds onto the surface. And then it empties out into a very flat area, and this is an area that they chose.
The way they landed was very peculiar. I've never seen any kind of craft come down with such a complicated sequence. They used parachutes and rockets and airbags. Why did they have to go through that whole complex procedure?
The main reason is they did not have retro rockets to slow it down. They had to use every possible way to get it slowed down. The first thing was to use the parachute. In order to get rid of the parachute so the parachute won't fall on top of the lander, they had to have small rockets to push it away. In order the rockets will not affect the bags in any way, they had to have a tether to get it away from those rockets. And then after that gets away from it, they cut the tether and let it bounce and come to a stop by itself. You must remember, though, it was started at 7 kilometers per second or faster. And when the tether got cut, it was only going approximately 40 or 50 meters per second. So it had to slow down tremendously before it could even start bouncing.
How hard is it to land in a place like Mars? I've heard you say that there is a curse about the planet. Is it a tough place to send a craft?
For the last 21 years, all previous missions have failed, whether they didn't get out of Earth's orbit or they were lost just when they were going into the Mars orbit, and this is both United States and Russian spacecraft. So it's been kidded about a lot that there's a ghost out there that is stealing all the spacecraft, and so it's a great day when we finally get one through after 20 years of trying.
Now, we're getting callous about it, I guess. It's an amazing thing. We get so much information from space. We get live pictures from Mir, our colleague here at CNN, Riz Khan, and callers from around the world. We're talking today live to the crew members aboard the shuttle Challenger. How much information, how quickly and how efficiently is Pathfinder going to communicate?
Comparing the Pathfinder to the space shuttle, the distances are just enormous. It's like calling your friend across the street versus trying to call them across the country. The time distance is very great. Therefore, you need to design the mission such that you'll be able to have much of it work on its own.
I guess that really it comes down to very small amounts of information transmitted very slowly.
Think about 10 years ago, a modem was able to transmit maybe 30 bits per second. That is about how fast the low-gain antenna number 1, will transmit. The high-gain antenna will maybe get up to 2,000 bits per second, which is maybe a 5-year-ago modem. We all get very frustrated on the internet with modems, and they're very, very slow. This is an extremely slow modem if you look at it that way.
Okay, we'll be getting news slowly, and a lot of people, a lot of scientists are going to be wondering about the passenger Sojourner. Can you tell us about it? How fast will it be going? How big is it? What exactly is it going to be doing out there?
It's only going to go to a distance of maybe 10 meters away from the lander during the first 7 days. This is the completion of the first phase of the rover. It will only move at approximately 1 meter per minute at the very most. It's more likely going to be moving at centimeters per minute.
How big is it?
It's kind of like a microwave oven or a small appliance, approximately a half a meter long, maybe a third of a meter wide, and maybe 10 to 12 centimeters high.
Now, people looking at the animation that we were just showing saw what looked like laser beams coming out of the front of it. You designed the animation. Was that creative license, or is there going to be some kind of beam coming from it?
Actually, there will be beams. There's 5 of them. And they use these beams to be able to detect rocks, where they're at, and approximately how big they are, so they can decide whether to go over them or around them. and this information is fed directly into the rover. It's calculated, and then it decides whether to go around them or over them, with very minimal amount of input from any operator on Earth.
Now, Mars is a tough place to land a spacecraft. Is it an easy place to run a car? Is Sojourner going to find the conditions there friendly to it?
No, it won't. That's one of the main design criteria of this and engineering tests, is how can you travel on a sandy soil? The animation here doesn't even show how sandy it really is, but you could sink your wheels up to a couple of centimeters into that soil, and to be able to keep moving and not get stuck is rather difficult. They've had a lot of practice with the moon. It has a similar substance to it, but it's hard to engineer. You'll notice it's not a rubber wheel, it's a metal wheel, and the sand can actually go up and around the wheel base.
Now, I'm from Canada, so I know what it's like to start a car in the winter. What are the temperatures going to be like for Sojourner?
It'll be as low as 100 degrees centigrade below zero and as hot as 40 degrees centigrade above. The higher temperature is not a big concern, it's those low temperatures. When you put batteries in low temperature, it's very hard to get the energy out of the battery. They have to keep those batteries warm so they can keep the energy coming from them.
How long are those batteries going to last? It's funny, it seems like they're sending a toy up there and just waiting for the batteries to run dry like any kid.
The mission is planned for 7 days, and the batteries will be sufficient to go through that first phase of the mission. They will hope that the solar panels will be able to recharge them and add additional power to the system to extend the mission for 2 months. That would be ideal. Then, on top of that, if it really works well, they might be able to get a whole year's service out of the rover.
Oh, we see the car. We know how it's going to be fueled. Who is going to be steering it?
It'll be a combination of its steering itself and the operators on Earth at the Jet Propulsion Lab determining where they want to go and analyze the soil. They'll basically pick out a point and then put that coordinate into the rover and tell the rover to go there. The rover will try to pick its way around the rocks or over the rocks to get to it. If it comes up to a difficult situation, doesn't know what to do, I'm sure it'll call home and ask for further instructions. But most of it will be done on board the rover.
Let me ask you a question as an engineer. How does this particular mission compare to the one that put man on the moon?
That's a difficult question. The two programs are so vastly different. One is a manned and one is an unmanned. The rules are completely different when you don't have to worry about a human being being part of the mission. On the other hand, it's a much farther distance. And the more concern is it was a very limited budget, $175 million, where the Apollo missions ran up to the tens and 20 of billions of dollars. So the cost magnitude is just vastly different. We've gotten a lot more bang for the buck out of this mission than I would say we got out of the Apollo mission.
Now, one thing that does come to mind is that Sojourner is a very simple-looking machine. It has to achieve extraordinary things, but it's not going to be doing very complicated things. Was most of the effort put into just getting it there, or are they hoping that once it's there, it's going to really achieve extraordinary results?
They're trying to do an engineering analysis of how well these rovers or future rovers will work on Mars. It's critical that they know how to get around on Mars for the next 9 missions. They have a lot of testing of this engineering that needs to be done, and that's the primary focus of this mission. They have to do it sometime, and that's what they're doing now, is testing out how to get around on Mars.
You brought us beautiful animations and extraordinary expertise. Dr. Kurt Grimal of the University of Oklahoma, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
When we come back, a conversation about the next steps. After Pathfinder, there are a lot more plans for the Red Planet. Stay with us.
Sustained program for exploring Mars. This is not just a single mission, it's just the beginning of a set of many missions. We'll send 2 missions every 26 months when the planets are properly aligned. One an orbiter, one a lander, just as in this case, ultimately to learn lots of things about Mars. One, is it suitable for human exploration in the future? Where is the water? How much of it does it have now? What's the climate like? And how does Mars fit into the family of planets? And why is it so similar yet so different from our own planet?
Are all of the probes going to be like the one that's just landed there? Is it going to be simple machines like Sojourner on each of these trips?
They're all relatively inexpensive missions, designed with the newest of technologies and done in many innovative ways, just as this landing was done in a very innovative and very inexpensive way, and apparently quite successfully. Each of the landers will be different. We will send them to different places to learn about the different places on Mars. We'll send a series of orbiters to complete the mapping of the entire planet so that we can select the right places to send our landers. And ultimately, in 2005, we expect to launch a mission to return samples from the surface of the planet.
Now, you bring up the question of mapping. We have seen maps of Mars. School children can find them. I saw a globe of Mars. How much remains to be learned about just what the face of the planet looks like?
Well, the last time we did global mapping was with the Viking missions in '76, and they were simple cameras. What we're doing with these orbiters is to map the geochemistry, the mineralogy of the surface, the topography, the variation with height, so we know how high things are, how low things are. And we'd like to find those singular places on the planet that might be most interesting to visit it. For example, if we could find evidence of an ancient hot spring, where we know very simple life seems to abound on this planet, or places that might have rocks of the type just similar to the Allen Hills meteorite that we learned about this summer.
Well, you're mentioning visits, so let me ask you more about that. Realistically, how soon do you think it's going to be before people end up going to Mars?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're spending so much effort at exploring this planet. Because we want to find out if it remains as interesting a planet as it seems to be now in terms of being a place for people to go to and holding out that carrot that life may have once started there. And we have to learn what it's like on the surface, and that's what these landed missions are for. What's the soil like? What's the atmosphere like? And can we, in fact, make fuel, oxygen, and the kinds of resources that human beings need out of local resources so we don't have to carry them there? And this could take about 10 years or more of research on the surface of Mars, at which time we'll be ready to make a decision as to whether to go or not.
When lay people think about Mars, they inevitably think about Martians. The question of life, either now or in the distant past, has come up, and some scientists think there's evidence of it. Is it possible that Sojourner or one of the vehicles like it in the foreseeable future will find more evidence that's relevant to the debate just by looking around on the dirt of the surface?
Mars Pathfinder wasn't designed to look for evidence of life. Later landers will be designed to look for the kind of chemical signatures and mineralogical signatures in these rocks that would pick them out as the kinds of samples we'd want to bring home. But what Pathfinder's Sojourner rover will do is, for the very first time, unlike the Viking lander, have mobility and go out and select rocks, look at them very close up, see if any of them have been formed by sedimentary processes during ages when Mars might have had standing water and lakes, to learn more about the history of Mars and the kind of material that might have allowed Mars in its past to have generated life, and the kind of material we'd like to go back and pick up someday.
We know a fair bit, or people like you, I should say, know a fair bit about the moon. You're now in the process of learning more about Mars. Can you just keep going on like this? Are all of the planets just waiting for people to end up sending technology or travelers to go visit? Or does Mars, for some reason, represent the last thing that we can realistically hope to discover?
Oh, by no means is Mars the last. Mars is the first. Mars has a particular place in the mind of man because it's so prominent in the night sky, and the ancients used to watch it crawl across the sky and assigned it very mysterious characteristics because of its blood red color in the sky. And in this century, the ideas of there once perhaps have been life there have certainly generated a lot of interest in it. But we're finding the solar system beyond Mars to be quite interesting in itself. For example, Europa, this ice-covered moon of Jupiter, may have an ocean underneath that frozen ice, and we're going to try to find out if that's true. And if there is an ocean there, I think that will be another interesting place we'd want to go to.
Well, hopefully we'll be talking to you again then. Dr. Wes Huntress of NASA, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
One final note before we go. If you want to see the very first pictures to come back from Mars, one of the first places you'll be able to find them is on CNN's special website on the internet located at cnn.com/Mars. Stay tuned to CNN for the latest on the Mars mission. Coming up in a few minutes, a live report from Pathfinder headquarters with the first pieces of data from the red planet and the first pictures we expect in some 2.5 hours from now. That is our program, though, for this day. I'm Jonathan Mann. Thanks for joining us. The news continues in just a moment.
Propulsion Laboratory in California, where there's about to be another news briefing on the Pathfinder mission to planet Mars. The information we have been given so far is that for about the past hour and a half, computers at the Jet Propulsion Lab have been receiving data from Pathfinder. They have used that data to paint a picture of just where it is, or at least how it is oriented on the surface of the planet. They are hoping to get a weather report from Mars very soon. This is the orientation of Pathfinder on the surface of Mars. If you look very closely, you can see some blue and red lines which represent the surface of Mars. This is how it looks right now, which is precisely the way it is supposed to look. It is only 2 degrees off of the perfectly horizontal orientation for the solar panels that are just beginning to receive some sunlight from the very early morning sun coming up on the landing site on Mars as those solar panels charge the batteries on board the Sojourner rover, as well as the mothership Pathfinder. There are going to be some spectacular pictures which may well be sent back to Earth. Joining me from the Jet Propulsion Lab to talk us into this news conference, CNN's John Zarella, a man who's been to more space launches than anybody else at this joint. How does this compare to watching the space shuttle go up?
Well, you know, John, the space shuttle is always an exciting event when it lifts off. There's no question about that. I've seen probably 60 or 70 of those, and every one is spectacular. But there is certainly an unbelievable degree of drama going on here. It's funny, you know, we can't see any of what's going on yet, but the drama is there, and I think that's what makes this story so amazing. You know, some of our viewers have wanted to know out there, well, exactly where is Mars in the sky if they go out and take a look, and Donna Shirley, where can we see Mars? Can we see Mars right now?
Well, we asked our project scientist, and he didn't know. But then we asked the guy who programmed the computer, who did all the software, and he said it's low in the western sky.
So very low on the horizon, so it'd be pretty difficult for folks to see this time of the year.
Right. Maybe they can see it right after dark.
Some new information that we can get out very quickly before the briefing starts about what happened that you know now during the descent and landing.
Right. As far as we know, there were 3 bounces. And it took just 3 bounces, which is a very small number of bounces. And the first bounce was 18 Gs. That's 18 times the force of gravity. The second bounce, I think, was 9 Gs, which is nothing. And then it rolled for about 92 seconds and then stopped. And when it opened up, it was absolutely flat, 2.5 degrees tilt, which is absolutely nothing. So that was really incredible news. Now, we have qualified these systems to land at 55 Gs. So
means it was a very soft landing, right?
Very soft, gentle landing, which must mean that the radar altimeter worked perfectly and the airbags were cut loose just very low above the ground, and so it's just absolutely couldn't be better.
So all that animation that we have has to be redone now, right? Because it has it bouncing around too much on the surface before it comes to rest.
Right, we'll redo that.
And now you're going to get some of the information in that. Now, we also heard just recently that that first packet of low-gain downlinked data about the health of the spacecraft is in.
Yes, it is. And as far as we know, it's completely in, and the engineers have been analyzing the data, and I think that's going to be the subject of this next press conference. And so, as far as we know, all of the systems are healthy, including the rover systems. So all the spacecraft seems to be working just great, and we're ready for the next step, which is to get the high-gain antenna pointed at the Earth.
We're going to go now to the presser. It's starting, so we're going to switch now on CNN to the presser.
Great.
How appropriate it is that we also start today a determination to be the masters of the science of our solar system. It is wonderful. I just want to spend a few moments saying how proud I am of these young people who are sitting on my left and those who think young that are over in the Mission Control and worked on this program across the agency. And I also would like to take this moment to thank the American taxpayers who have had confidence in NASA as we've gone through all these changes, and they stuck with us because it is their program, it is not our program, and we at NASA celebrate you for believing in us. Being a different kind of program, I was here in the spring, and a young man, Kirk Goodall, came up to me and said, Dan, we can't be on the internet because we're going to get too many hits. He said, I'm concerned because we only have a capacity for 5 to 10 million hits here at JPL. So I authorized him so that every person in America who wanted to turn on to the internet to watch this mission could do it. And he informed me we now have a capacity somewheres between 75 and 100 million people to tune into the internet, and they told me that by about 5 or 6 o'clock today they anticipated 40 million hits. This is exciting. We are now really in the electronic age, and I'm so proud that we could get this information to everyone who wants to see it. So let me at this point turn the program over to the real people who did it and tell you and all the people who work for you how proud I am, the Vice President, the President, and the American people, the people who allowed us to sit up here. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I don't think I need to tell you how amazingly happy the flight team is, not just us, but our friends and family who are here. This is really a spectacular day. It's gone better than we really possibly could imagine. Sometimes we're pinching ourselves saying, is this really real? Or are we doing a simulation? But no, the lander is on the surface of Mars, and we're getting data back from it. It looks very, very good. The rover is also giving us data. I'll give you some more specifics in a minute. But I think this is definitely, I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody on the flight team, Tony Spear, Brian Muirhead, that this is definitely an experience that all of us will remember for the rest of our lives, that this is really special, and that we're on the surface of another planet, that we'll get to explore it over the next few weeks and months, and we will learn a great deal about both ourselves and our solar system. So we're really pleased. Let me just give you some basic statistics about the status of the lander and the rover, just so that I think most of it's gone on over the net, so you've probably heard it, but I'll summarize it. Jennifer Harris and the flight team are doing an excellent job of assessing the health and status. Basically, we do know now that the airbags are fully retracted and the pedals are deployed. Rob will talk more about the entry, descent, and landing process, what happened during that phase. But in the end, the lander appears to be tilted about 2.5 to 3 degrees, which is quite flat. In fact, we were having a little pool there at the last minute as far as what we were betting, and it was a little bit lower than what we were guessing. We routinely in our simulations get angles up at 10 or 15 degrees, so this is great that they were basically flat on the surface. The battery state of charge, which is a very important parameter for how well we're able to continue doing surface operations, right now is at 76%. Again, that's beyond what we thought it would be. We didn't use as much power or energy during entry, descent, and landing, which leaves more for surface operations. So there again, we're very pleased. The solar arrays are producing power on the lander. Obviously, that's a requirement for the mission to proceed, and they look like they're operating fine. So there again, we're pleased with that. The camera, for those of you who might have missed it, we did unlock the camera in this last set of activities. The camera is unlocked, it is functioning, and we're up actually, as we speak, probably doing the sun search activity and beginning to take the first images. So hopefully in a few hours or a few minutes or less, we'll be getting those first images back. The lander temperatures are all within the predicted range, and basically, like I said, it's about as normal and about as straightforward, or essentially just what we estimate or just what we calculated if everything were going to go right. As far as the rover's concerned, we did get information from the rover. The rover and lander are communicating well. About 98% of the packets are getting through between the rover and the lander, which is excellent. The rover's awake. It was awakened by lander command. All of its engineering subsystems checked out. All of its temperatures are within the expected range. Solar arrays producing power. So we're basically, like I said, doing really well. And we, as you heard over the net there, activated our next sequence, and we're going to go ahead with the remainder of the surface mission. So with that, I'll let Rob talk about entry, descent, and landing.
Well, the little engine that could did. And we are just absolutely boggled by the fact that this fairly complex design that we've been thinking about and stewing over and testing and trying to make work really did the job. And you've seen me, and I've sort of been representing the entry, descent, landing team, but really this is a team that all Americans should be proud of because it involves so many people from all over this country of ours. It's from coast to coast. I wouldn't say every state in the union, but a lot of people from all over helped, all over NASA as well as JPL. So it's something that a lot of people can take credit in, and not just me. So with that, I'm going to let you give a little bit of interesting information about how it went. It turns out that there was a few surprises, not too many. One of the spacecraft landed almost exactly when at the time we predicted it. The signals, as you remember, we had some interesting signals from the spacecraft after we landed. My worst case expectations did not come true. It turns out the spacecraft was very visible after all once it rolled to a stop. The spacecraft did in fact bounce as the spacecraft was designed to do. In fact, it bounced quite high. Maybe I've got actually an accelerometer plot here. If I can pull that one out. That's not the right one. Actually, that is a good one. That's not a bad one for the. There we go. There's a good one right there. Maybe you can pull that one up. You can see. I won't talk too much about the first one. You can see the little tiny spike. That's just an anomaly in how we change the gains of the accelerometers. But that big bump here, that's the deceleration of the vehicle as it went through the atmosphere. Soon thereafter, the software under an algorithm that uses the deceleration profile to figure out when to open the parachute. Open the parachute a little bit later than we expected, which is indicative of the atmosphere being a little bit thinner than we expected. We don't know how much. Not too much later, the rockets fired, giving a nice little boost to the vehicle, and then it hit the ground, and it hit the ground a few times. At least there's one bounce there. We think those are bounces. This data was just put together by Dave Gruhl here about literally 15 minutes ago. So we really haven't had much time to analyze it. But there's no question that the spacecraft hit the surface of Mars quite hard. We haven't looked at the orientation yet, but the first time it hit the surface of Mars was about 18 Gs. It bounced again about 15 meters high, we think, which is pretty high. About 50 feet, and then it hit again about 9 Gs of deceleration, and then it flew up again for another 7 meters in the air, and then hit even harder, 11 Gs. And we haven't figured out what that's all about yet, but it might be in the fact that the spacecraft actually spun up as it impacted, and that could fool the accelerometers into thinking it was actually a straight translation. So there's a couple other surprises, and that's it looks like our terminal descent velocity, that's the velocity that we sense with the radar, was about almost 10 meters per second faster. Instead of going about, let's see, I'm going to do a metric conversion. Instead of going about 120 miles per hour, they're more like 140 miles per hour at the time the rockets fired, which is a little bit surprising to us. It means that we don't really understand the atmospheric density of Mars as well as we thought. But on the other hand, it was well within our expectations of how the design was, the design envelopes. So it was just a little surprise. It wasn't a big deal. The other thing is, this is the part that I lost this bet. This lander has 4 sides, as a tetrahedron should. But what's the odds of rolling down in the base pedal, huh? 1 in 4. I picked it was going to do this. This spacecraft rolled to a stop just like this. And we didn't have to open the pedals to right itself as we had designed it to do and tested so many times. So, if people ask, well, how do you right yourself? Well, we don't have to right ourselves. We didn't have to this time, and didn't need these pedals after all, Richard says. So the spacecraft appears to be, the airbag's fully retracted, and appears that the pedals are really open, perfectly flat. It's interesting. The software tells us that these things have happened and did not feel any errors or sense any errors during this process. So it's a very good bet that they really are. But we will get a better indication in the next downlink session when we actually take pictures around the periphery of the lander and look at see how the airbags are bunched around the vehicle. So that will be kind of the proof of the pudding, but I'm very happy. And I really am not out of a job. It turns out that I'll be working on surface operations with Richard for some time to come. And but as far as the entry set landing job, we're there, and we couldn't be happier. Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. We have another picture of the some of the temperatures on. Let's see. Not that one. The one we just had. No. One more. No. That's fine. Actually, how about pull out the landing site picture? There's we've got several. The first one. I think this is the very first picture we have here to show where we think we landed. Okay, go ahead. That's a good one. Why don't you go ahead and pull that up so people can see? Well, this is where we think we are. And it's interesting to note, our navigators, if you remember, put us in this region early this morning by 7 o'clock. It turned out that we ended up landing a little earlier in terms of, I say earlier, I mean a little bit less downrange of our landing site. Remember, we're coming in from the northeast, going in this direction, working our way past the center of our desired ellipse, and this is where we ended up. We thought we would be down here. Matt can tell you more about what we're going to see if we land in this, if we really are here. The reason this thing got so small, we're not sure why it moved just yet, but it appears that there may have been an atmospheric density differences than what we expected, as I mentioned before. That's one possibility. Maybe other reasons as well, but this information was acquired over DSS 65, is that right, Richard? Yes, and at the SPF, the station in Madrid, the Deep Space Station in Madrid, over a few hours before we went before we got into EDL. So I think we're safely there, and I'm going to let Dr. Tim Schofield talk a little bit about what we might get from a science point of view from this entry, descent, and landing data.
Okay, thanks, Rob. The first picture, thank you. The ASIMET is composed of two parts. One part of the experiment is to understand the structure of the atmosphere as we enter the atmosphere. The other part is basically a weather station on the surface of Mars. And we have now got the first data from the first part of that mission. This slide that's showing now shows you a detail of the acceleration curve that Rob showed you earlier. At time zero, we're at about 160 kilometers. We hurtle into the very tenuous upper atmosphere, and accelerations are building up gradually all the time. Finally, we hit the maximum deceleration peak here at about 15 G at about 120, 130 seconds, which is a height of 30 or 40 kilometers. If I could have the next slide, please. This is the same data, but plotted on a scale which shows our measurements from very high in the atmosphere. From here we have 10 millionths of a G acceleration, and building up all the way as it comes in, all the way up to that 15 G acceleration peak again. And then you have the parachute deployment pulse there. This information is going to let us work out the density profile of the atmosphere from basically all the way out high in the atmosphere down to well below the deceleration peak, down to where the parachute deploys. We then have pressure and temperature measurements below that level also. We have very preliminary data from the lander part of the mission. We haven't deployed our mast yet. It looks as if the temperatures that we're measuring are around 220 Kelvin, which is about minus 64 Fahrenheit. Those temperatures are somewhat warmer than Viking, but the mast is very close down to the spacecraft on the pedal, so it may well be that the sensors are being heated by the sun rather more than they would be when they're up in their correct position. So we're looking forward in the next coming hours to getting the rest of this entry data set, much higher resolution, and working out the density profile and hopefully the pressure and temperature profile, and then getting the time series of atmospheric data. It looks as if both instruments have worked perfectly. Richard mentioned this being like a simulation. To my mind, it's nothing like the simulations. The simulations went wrong all the time. From the point of view of the scientists, the data was always getting lost and going wrong, but so far it's been going very, very smoothly.
Okay, you've heard the very first data we've gotten from our spacecraft, or first science data, I should say, and that will help the atmospheric scientists try to work out this entry, descent, and profile of what the atmosphere is like all the way from 120 kilometers down to the surface. I'd like to back up to about 3 a.m. this morning, and show you what we went through in the last few hours prior to entry. If I could have the first slide, please. What you see here is the landing ellipse in the so-called science ellipse in this large yellow. And at about 9:30 last night and later at about 2 a.m. this morning, the ellipse was this white one shown here, which actually cuts through the northern half of this streamlined island. And some of us scientists were there at JPL at midnight to 2 a.m. trying to determine the slopes on this streamlined island to make sure that they were within the tolerances that the spacecraft could handle, to determine if we needed to do a trajectory correction maneuver to try to nudge us into a so-called safer region. And one nudge would have put us over in this region. Another could have put us up in here, which actually looked worse. One could have put us down here, which is definitely worse. And cooler heads prevailed, and we in fact did not do that trajectory correction maneuver. And we wound up landing right in this small piece of this ellipse shown here. And the next slide shows a high resolution, a detail of that. What's shown on this is the best prediction from the navigation team as to where we actually wound up on the surface of Mars. And it's somewhere within this ellipse, and you can choose your pixel, and that's the one we're in. We do not know which pixel we're in, and it may take us a while to figure it out. What also shows on this are the 20 pixel elements that should be visible from a portion within that circle of large hills like this one here. 20 pixels could be seen by the camera if we landed within that red circle. And there's a larger streamlined island to the south. Could we go back one slide just for a moment, please? Back to the one we were just showing. Thank you. This large streamlined island, this one right here, is about 500 meters high, we think, with what may be a boulder bar behind it. This should be visible in a much, much larger region, this red circle shown here. Back to the next one again, that's the circle you see here. And again, here's a small hill. Well, small, that's a building. Small hill with, again, that 20 pixel element that should be visible. Here's a crater that we should see. And so we're hopeful that after we turn on the imager and start taking pictures, which we've actually are doing, I guess, we will see some of these things. What you'll also notice are this series of what we call secondary craters. And if you look carefully at these craters, they have a bit of a herringbone pattern, which actually tells you the direction that the primary crater hit the surface of Mars. And this is ejecta from that primary crater that is now flopping across the surface. And those herringbones point to the south. We believe the primary crater for these secondary ejecta craters is about 60 to 100 kilometers, or that's one guess. And we might be somewhere in the midst of these as well. And there was some worry, of course, that this would be a very rocky area, since that there's quite a bit of ejecta around these craters. Interestingly also is that these craters seem to have captured some of the dark mafic material. If you look at the pictures of Mars that we've shown, There's sort of this reddish material, and then there's this dark black surface stuff. We think that's a dark mafic sand, and we may have the prospect of actually seeing some of that. All of which we don't know what we will see. Again, I don't know which pixel we're in, and we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, now what's next? Within the next half hour or so, 35 minutes, the meteorology mast, the 1 meter mast, will deploy into the upright configuration with the wind mast on top and the 3 temperature sensors, and we hope to get our first weather report from the surface of Mars at about 35 minutes from now. We should be, if we're very fortunate enough to get the high gain antenna, start receiving the very first images from the surface of Mars. And I want to walk you through what to expect when you see them and warn.
All right, the timetable is set, the clock is ticking. 34 minutes from right now, it is very possible we could be seeing the first picture sent live from the surface of Mars in the past 20 years. And that's what the scientists are saying. We're going to go to Moneyline now, and we'll be back at about 1/2 the next hour, or if the first pictures get here ahead of 1/2 the next hour, we'll be back with those as well. John Holloman, CNN, reporting as our journey to the Red Planet continues.
News and information are essential for today's travelers. Make certain you choose one of these fine CNN International.
And a few hours after that, Pathfinder will release a small rover that will move about and test rock samples.
We have deoxygenation!
Scientists on Earth cheered when they received the first data from Pathfinder. It was the latest in a series of cheers to echo through Mission Control in Southern California as the spacecraft passed key milestones. At a briefing a few minutes ago, NASA officials ticked off system after system that is working just as predicted, and the scientists are predictably pleased.
This is really a spectacular day. It's gone better than we really possibly could imagine. Sometimes we're pinching ourselves, saying, "Is this real? Is this really real, or are we doing a simulation?" But no, the lander is on the surface of Mars. And we're getting data back from it. It looks very, very good. The rover is also giving us data. I'll give you some more specifics in a minute. But I think this is definitely, I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody on the flight team, Tony Spear, Brian Muirhead, that this is definitely an experience that all of us will remember for the rest of our lives, that this is really special, and that we're on the surface of another planet, that we'll get to explore it over the next few weeks and months. And we will learn a great deal about both ourselves and our solar system.
Pathfinder's landing on Mars was the first in 21 years. The spacecraft used an innovative airbag system to cushion Mars' fall, bouncing a few times before settling down. Pathfinder was designed to turn itself upright however it landed, but NASA says it happened to land right side up, a mere 2.5 degrees off a horizontal level. Once the initial photos are taken and system checks finish, Sojourner will be released. The rover, which is the size of a microwave oven, has already been turned on successfully. It will move about the surface for a week, testing the properties of Martian rocks, dust, and debris. And joining us now from outside the mission control at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Southern California is CNN's John Zarella. Hello, John.
Hello, Relitza. Good evening. I have to tell you that the scientists and the engineers saying that they were pleased is pretty much an understatement. They are ecstatic about how things have gone so far. All of the data that they have been receiving so far indicates that everything on the vehicle is working about as perfectly as it could work. As you mentioned, only a 2.5 degree tilt. That's exceptional. And the vehicle is in perfect position. It looks like at this point for them to be able to get the Sojourner rover off of the pedal sometime later this evening. And joining me this evening is Donna Shirley. And Donna, all of these people who have been on this program are really your children, and they're all quite excited about what happened. You know, there is an interesting question a lot of people always have, and get this out of the way. they say, well, why do we go to Mars? And a lot of the answers I've heard is, well, we really go to Mars to study Earth because we want to know what?
We want to know whether what happened to Mars to make it cold and unfriendly and a miserable place to live could happen to the Earth. We'd like to know why Mars lost all its water millions of years ago and where that water went. We'd like to know why Mars lost most of its atmosphere. We'd like to know why Mars is cold. And it's the same thing. We'd like to know why Venus is a hell on surface that can melt lead. If we can find out those things, it might be able to keep us from doing awful things to our own planet.
They really could be critical questions that could be answered about the evolution of the Earth, where we could be heading without much choice, or perhaps our own ability to alter the outcome.
That's right. That's right. One of the things we know about Mars, for instance, is that there's no life on the surface. It's completely sterile. And one of the explanations might be that the atmosphere is so thin that it's just a giant ozone hole. There's no ozone in the Mars atmosphere, so the ultraviolet just comes straight through and just bakes the surface. And, you know, there's an ozone hole over New Zealand in the summer, and the kids have to wear long-sleeve bathing suits.
Now, to this specific mission, we are rapidly moving down about 25 minutes to one of the very, very big events. One milestone after another has been clicked off successfully.
Perfectly.
The next one in about 25 minutes.
Right. The next one is to get the first pictures back. Now, these are not very good-looking pictures. These are going to be little, highly compressed pictures, and that means that to send them back with not too much data, so they come back pretty fast, they're going to take a lot of the data out and just squeeze the rest of it together. So we don't have stuff it on the ground, but we do have a way of decompressing the pictures. But these first ones aren't going to look very good. What they're going to do, though, is tell us whether it's safe for the rover to get off or not.
That'll be and then you will get that panoramic view, that the one, I guess, that everyone is really waiting for, that look out over the Martian landscape.
That's right. The color panorama should come back around 6:30, something like that.
So it'd be about 9:30 Eastern time,
right,
folks on the East
Pacific,
Coast, 6:30 Pacific time. And then the rover off the lander sometime later in the evening, perhaps an hour or 2 hours later at the most?
Maybe
not
yeah,
even?
at the most. Because once we know that it's okay, then we'll deploy the ramps, tell the rover to stand up, and if the ramps fit right, if everything's good with the ramps, then bang, we get the rover off, because we want that rover on the ground to spend the first night. We don't want her on the solar panels.
Donna, thank you so much. You've been here with us all day, and we still have quite a few hours, it looks like, left to go this evening before
we're
permanently chained here. So another milestone coming up in about a half an hour or so, that first image from Mars, what everyone will be waiting for. And then as we move on through the evening, Relitza, we will be, of course, getting the color pictures, the rover off the lander, and just an exciting, exciting time yet to come here from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and from Mars, about 120 million miles away, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Relitza?
Thanks, John. We can't wait to join you again for all that excitement. And elsewhere in space, Russia's Mission Control is giving the crew of Mir an extra 6 days to get ready for repairs on the space station. Russia's most famous cosmonaut, Sergei Krikalev, will be the chief advisor when the repair work begins in about 2 weeks. For now, Krikalev is leading training exercises at Russia's Star City, simulating the repair work underwater. A collision last week damaged the Spectre module and forced the crew to disconnect cables that link Mir's power system to solar batteries. Still to come on World News, the so-called Iron wake-up music and some pretty pictures that came from the U.S. Space Shuttle. Thanks for watching.
News and information are essential for today's travelers. Make certain you choose one of these fine CNN International Partner hotels next time you travel. For more information about these and other partner hotels, turn to page 300 on CNN Text where available.
On weekdays, CNN International is your guide to living in today's world. Monday, Earth Matters looks at ways to protect and preserve our planet. Tuesday, CNN Computer Connection presents new programs and products for your computer. Wednesday, it's the latest fashions from top designers on Style with Elsa Kletch. Thursday, intriguing discoveries in Science and Technology Week. And on Friday, in-depth discussion of the issues affecting our world on Global View. Add more to your life weekdays on CNN International.
This is CNN International.
The role of the anchor really is to, I think, harness the hard work that the rest of the news team puts together.
CNN International anchor Riz Khan.
I've come through every level, producing, writing, reporting, and everything else, so I feel rounded as a journalist.
Committed to fair and accurate global news coverage.
We broadcast to the whole world. The shows that I do, World News, tend to cover a little bit more about Asia because that's when the audience is at its prime in that part of the world. So the shows on CNN International at those times tend to be filled a lot with live things, live happenings all the time. You know, we get a lot of breaking news and a lot happens in that time. The mission is basically to get the news out accurately, fairly, and as quickly as possible. There is a basic level of commitment to make sure that things are done properly, to make sure that they're done in a way that people can say this was the news accurately and fairly. That's the clear basic mission of CNN International.
Riz Khan anchors World News on CNN International.
The following is CNN's coverage of a live event.
Welcome back. It's John Holloman at CNN Center. We're going to take you right now into the control room at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory's Mission Control in Pasadena, California, where everybody in that control room is gathered around a computer monitor. And as you can see, the people in there hugging, kissing, applauding, clapping. The reason they are doing that, we believe, is that the first picture to be seen on planet Earth live from the surface of planet Mars is beginning to appear in that control room. Now, okay, this is the live picture. You can see the excitement on people's faces.
You can hear the excited...
Let's listen to the commentator there.
As Pathfinder Mission Control, as they have been locking on the high-gain antenna, or right on schedule, 4:30 Pacific Daylight Time, and they have indications that the high-gain antenna has located the sun.
Well, this is good news. One of the things that had to happen...
Is essential for transmission of data from the high-gain antenna.
Donna Shirley, you're the Mars Exploration Manager for NASA. Listen to this and comment when you like.
Okay. Well, what's happened is it looks like that the sun-finding algorithm, that is the equation that told the camera to find the sun, has indeed worked. The computer program on board the lander completely autonomously has found the sun, and then they were able to actually point the high-gain antenna, the lander, all by itself, at the Earth, and so we are now starting to get a signal from the high-gain antenna, which means that we will be getting the pictures back.
A lot of cheering and yelling and screaming and attaboy and attagirl going on in this room.
More handshakes and cheers.
We have 4 frames in lock so far.
I suspect that the pictures have started to come in.
Donna, there are a lot of computer monitors in that room, including 2 that we can't look directly into where the shift leader is looking. Where will the first picture come in?
Well, I don't know which monitor the picture comes in on, but they're supposed to go up on NASA Select right away. So within some small period of time, we should be able to pull them off of the NASA Select feed.
Okay, we have an internet site here that plugs in to the Jet Propulsion Lab, and I believe the pictures are coming in on that internet site right now. We'll check that and pop it up, and we may get it as quickly as the folks at NASA Select get it. We'll find out. And
now, what these
Go ahead,
Let me
Donna.
explain what these pictures will be of. If you can get down on our little model here, where these pictures will be of the edges of the solar arrays to make sure that the airbags are neatly tucked in under the solar arrays and that they're not lopping over onto the pedals and blocking the pedals. And we're particularly interested in the pedal that the Rover is on because we need to be able to deploy the ramps off the ends of off the edges of the solar panel so that the Rover can crawl off on the ramps and get down onto the surface. And that's the next big event after the pictures coming in. Now these pictures that we're getting are just little black and white images, very highly compressed, just of ugly little airbags and possibly the Rover's wheels. So that, and the Rover's, part of the Rover and part of the ramps that are going to unfold for the Rover to get down. So these are not going to be very pretty. The pretty pictures are going to come in at about 6:30. Yep, I bet you a picture just came in.
That's probably an image right there.
Yeah,
isn't
there it is. There it is. That is an image. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
What is it?
Okay, well, we can see a little bit of Mars. There's rocks. There's the airbags just sticking up just a little bit. They look just fine. But we've got Mars. We've got rocks on Mars. And boy, is
that a Rover wheel? Was that?
Yeah, that was the Rover wheel there a minute ago. Now, I can't tell what this is. Boy, these are hard to see on this little bitty screen here.
Donna, CNN is going to try eventually to get a bigger TV.
That's a solar panel there, John.
See the solar arrays on it? You can see that. And this must be, look at those airbags. They're just beautiful. They're all tucked in very neatly. They're not on top of the pedals at all.
Which really means you're in excellent position to get the Rover off.
Excellent position to get the Rover off. Now there'll be some more coming in because what they want to do is to take pictures all around the edges of the pedals to make sure that there's no interference.
Will they put them together then in a mosaic, so to speak?
Yes, they will, but they probably won't even bother to mosaic these pictures because what they're going to do is wait for the color pictures to come down. Now that they know the high gain antenna is correctly pointed, the next images that come down will be the color images, and then they're going to make a really beautiful mosaic that'll have color, that'll have the Rover in it. The Rover will be right there in the middle of the picture, and
now this is, you know, we should be pretty excited. These are the first pictures in 21 odd years from the surface of Mars.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is a tremendous event unfolding right here now.
And there's rocks right there, so the Rover won't even have to go very far to find rocks. I mean, this is just, it's beautiful.
Barely has to go off the limb and get to work with the pedal with the alpha spectrometer, X-ray proton spectrometer.
Alpha proton X-ray spectrometer. Very good.
And doesn't have to move very far. Yes, John.
Let me just jump in. These pictures are coming in very rapid succession, it looks to me like. Is that an indication that the high-gain antenna is doing precisely what it's supposed to be? I mean, I've seen 7 different views show up on this computer screen just in the past few minutes while we've been talking.
Absolutely. This means the high-gain antenna is not only pointed at the Earth.
There's a good, wider photo.
Oh, wow. That's hard to see, though. Oh, here it goes. This is one of the pedal actuators that you can see here. One of the motors that actually opens the pedal up like that.
Wayne, can you...
Does it look good to you, Donna?
Hard to see. It looks beautiful to me.
Now, is the... John, is the vehicle taking, this is all pre-programmed to take these? You haven't commanded it to do any of this.
We haven't said a word to the vehicle yet. These are all pre-programmed, and there's going to be something like, I forget how many of these, but they're 80-to-1 compression. So if these are this good, you can imagine what the real pictures, when they get in color and full and not compressed, are going to look like.
Compare these, just from what we're looking at, to the Viking pictures.
Right.
I mean, these are probably better than the Viking pictures.
Well, not yet, but they sure will be. They'll be a lot better. Now, see, this here is showing where these pictures are being taken. This little pie chart is showing where the pictures are actually being taken with respect to the lander, so that you can see. Now, here's some, oh, wow, here's some close-ups. And see the airbags. There's a little bit of airbag sticking up.
That's on the right side of the screen, John. That's the airbag and the wheel. And on the left side,
airbag over here.
And what they're trying to do now,
a little airbag.
Yeah, Donna and John, they're trying to begin to mosaic these pictures together. Those two pictures, they appear to be together at this point. So the picture that we're getting is bigger and bigger and bigger, and
very good.
More and more fascinating. Donna, I don't know how well you can see on that tiny little TV set where you are.
Not well.
Yeah.
Not well.
On the left side of the two pictures, there appears to be a little black blob sort of in the center of that picture. Just
this here.
Yeah. Now, is that a normal looking thing to you?
Actually, I'm not sure what that is, but it's too regular to be abnormal.
I see. Okay.
It's probably just, oh, I know what it is. When the panels are latched together, they come together, and if we can look down at our little model, can we? Oh, we can't. It doesn't do you any good. We can't see it. Anyway, when the panels are folded up, they're latched together, and that's one of the latches. And how you release that latch is you fire a pyrotechnic device that pulls the pin out, and then the rover pedals can come apart, and that's what that is.
Yep. This is amazing. I mean,
and look at those rocks. Look at those rocks.
John,
There's
up
rocks
on the
right there.
The upper left of that picture on your left, Donna's referring to those rocks that are right off of the pedal.
Yep, I can see them out there. Yeah, we have
I'm having trouble telling what the thing on the right is.
On the right-hand side, is that the Rover wheel that we're looking at?
So.
No.
It doesn't look like it.
No.
It's really hard to tell from this tiny little monitor.
Well, we're going to get more
pictures. It appears to be rocks.
We're going to get more pictures. Oh, yeah.
That's right. And as we get more, Donna, I was going to ask you before we went into a news conference a little while ago, if this were an ideal world and everything worked exactly the way it was supposed to, how many pictures would we see from the surface of Mars over the next 7 days?
Oh, lousy. Lots and lots. I don't know.
Hundreds and hundreds.
I don't know how to count them. Hundreds and hundreds, that's right. And now they'll be taking pictures of different objects. So first they'll do a complete scan of the horizon with all 12 different colors.
Yeah.
This camera takes pictures in stereo in 12 different colors.
And the people back at your end are wearing 3D glasses, some of them, to get the depth and all on these.
That's because these pictures are coming in stereo.
Could our viewers do the same thing? If they watch these pictures at home, if they had 3D glasses on, could they see some of the relief in the pictures?
No. No, these pictures have to be very carefully processed, and it's a very special, very high technology silicon graphics computer that makes them into 3D. And you have to have very special glasses to see it.
There's a new photo up there now, John. It looks like, is that airbags?
Yeah, that's airbags around the edge.
Around the edge.
Now this is of the edge, and see the airbags are tucked in close to the pedal, and there's another rock right there, and that's a light rock. So we've so far got dark rocks and light rocks, which is exactly
what you wanted.
What we wanted. Now I don't know if these are really dark and really light because we won't be able to tell until we get there. Oh wow, there's a real close up. Okay. Yeah, see, this is the edge of the pedal, and it looks just fine to me.
We have not taken any faults since our last down session.
Little mission commentary in the background there as the folks in the control room with that computer are talking about these pictures. You can hear a lot of background noise there, and we'll continue to listen up as we hear what these people have to say.
If they're making commentary, it's better than my commentary because they can see the pictures better.
Yes, all of the relays are in the correct position. The battery state of charge is at 72.8%. The shunt current is 1.35 amps. Bus current high is 3.25. Bus current low is 3.33. The battery is charging at 0.12 amps. The battery is discharge is 0. Pedal solar array current is 3.37. The bus voltage is 28.8. The battery voltage is 28.96.
Perfect.
The battery temperatures are 18.87 and 19.55. So
all
everything
of these
relative to the
numbers
power
are just
system
perfect.
is nominal. The battery is at a higher
totally
state of
nominal.
charge.
Great. That means all the power system is working right.
Slide ACS. Go ahead, ACS. The quaternion.
Oh, here's Planet Fest.
This is an interesting sight. People here are watching at the Planet Fest in Pasadena, California, and there's a huge crowd there. Hundreds and hundreds of people are interested in planetary exploration. They are looking at these pictures on a big screen TV, and they just seem to be fascinated. They're not cheering like the mission scientists are, but they are certainly enraptured by what they're seeing on the surface of Mars, as are we all.
John, there are about 2,000 people there, and I don't know if you heard Donna before. She was saying that all of that data that they were reporting says that the vehicle is performing perfectly, the batteries are in perfect condition, everything is in excellent shape.
Yeah,
temperatures are right on.
That's, I mean, temperature is a big thing on Mars, Donna, because it varies so dramatically from middle of the day to the middle of the night, right?
Yes, somebody told us that it was actually only minus 64 degrees Fahrenheit, which is quite warm for that time of the night. I mean, remember, it's, well, it's dawn now, and the sun is starting to come up and warm things up. Wow, now that is, what is that? That's an airbag with dirt, okay? Good dirt. So Henry Moore will be very happy. He likes dirt.
Geologists love dirt.
Yeah.
And this is mostly a geology mission, right, Don? I mean, the pictures are fabulous for us, but the folks who are really going to be able to get a lot from this are geologists who are going to look at these various rocks as the rover goes around and points its looker at these various samples that are there on the surface of Mars.
It's actually more like a sniffer.
Yeah.
And so as well as looking, it's going to sniff them. And so we'll not only know what they look like, but what the chemistry of them is.
A little chemistry set in space.
Oh.
It's just amazing.
Okay, now there's another actuator. So all this stuff is showing that everything is just perfect. I mean, it just looks like that model in the auditorium.
No kidding. There are a couple of the wheels. This is what happens, you know, when they open the cargo bay on the space shuttle. They do a survey.
Oh, these are the rocker bogies. Okay. What we're seeing here is this must be the back of the, now that's a solar panel. Oh, there's a wheel. See that circular shiny thing there up in the upper right corner?
We had seen one just a minute ago as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen at least the 3 wheels on one side, Donna, go by.
Okay, now this is some airbags. Okay, this is in between the pedals here. I can't really tell what these look like.
This is Mars Pathfinder Mission Control.
I can't tell what that particular...
Oh, look at that, Donna. That's looking out from the rover.
Okay, all right. Rocks, lots of rocks. Beautiful.
Looks kind of like Mars.
Oh, there's a big rock. There's a big rock.
Yep, right up at the upper right-hand corner of your screen.
Yeah. Oh, boy, is the rover going to love to get his spectrometer on that one.
Yeah.
Woo.
Folks at Planet Fest are up on their feet now. It's like the World Series out there, up and applauding.
Oh, this is incredible. Just look at that. And it's an easy trek over to that rock, an easy trek. So we can send the rover right over there. And the rover can put a spectrometer on that rock anywhere.
That's a nice picture, too, a nice wide picture.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, there's a big, oh, those are big rocks. Those are lovely. Now, see, this is the advantage of the airbags. Because if we landed with propulsion the way that Pathfinder had, we wouldn't have been stood off from the rocks like this. We could have been right on top of them. But the airbags have stood us off from the rocks. And so those airbags have done their job.
And also, if you were using a rocket to get you down there, a lot of what was on the surface would be blown away by the rocket blast, right? I mean, this is pretty much undisturbed.
That's true, except for where the airbags have actually dragged in. But that's actually good because that turns rocks over. And we'd like for the rover to be able to put its spectrometer against the unweathered side of the rock. So we'd like to turn rocks over. So if the airbags have turned a few rocks over, we're going to be very happy. Although we don't expect to find any worms under them.
Donna, I can't tell if you have just planned this so very well so that everything that happens is just exactly the way you want it, or if it's just a very lucky night for you and your Pathfinder team. I think it's probably the former.
Well, a lot of it's the former, but a lot of it has to be the latter because we don't know what Mars is like. I mean, we were diving into an unknown terrain. It's like if you were going to Acapulco, you know those divers that dive off the rocks?
The pearl divers,
and they've done it before, so they know where they're going. But if you went up the first time and you didn't know, you'd probably kill yourself, right?
Yeah,
so this is just like diving in where we don't know diving into the pool where we don't know what's under there. And so there's a lot of luck to it that we have as well as just superb engineering and science. Now there's the rover. Okay, this is the solar panel of the rover. And you see on the top edge, there's a close-up now, that bent part that's got a double bend, that's the antenna.
Yeah.
So that means the antenna's locked in properly. The solar arrays look good. There's rocks right there. Everything is looking terrific.
That was looking down right on top of
right
Sojourner.
on top of Sojourner, that's right. Now she hasn't stood up yet, so when she stands up, then it'll be somewhat different view.
Donna,
and this is
approximately when will Sojourner stand up, and how does that work?
Okay, as soon as these pictures are in, if the scientists put them together and determine, and the engineers, and determine that it's safe, oh, there's some airbag stuff all folded up, and I don't know where that is. So I don't know if this is a problem or not. But if they determine that the airbags are in good condition, then they'll right away send the command to deploy the meteorology mast and for the rover to stand up and for the ramps to deploy. Then, after they deploy the ramps and the rover stood up, they'll take another picture. That's when they get this really nice color panorama. Yeah. That is what they'll make the decision to send the rover off or not.
Now, how long do you anticipate it to take for all of these postage stamp-sized pictures, as others have described them, to come in? I mean, how long before they have the mosaic ready to show us?
Well, I really don't know. I think it will probably be another few minutes.
But we're getting to see these things absolutely the first, just as they come in on the computer.
Absolutely. We promised that to the world. We said as soon as we get these pictures, everybody's going to get to see them just as soon as we do. And this is really unprecedented because always before, the scientists have had rights to the data, so they could hold the data for a long time until they felt comfortable releasing it. And Peter Smith has taken the risk of just putting it out there without knowing what it was going to look like, and that's quite courageous for a scientist.
All right. Well, listen, Donna, we've got a picture now of your crew in Mission Control doing the same thing our viewers are doing all over the world now, looking at the TV set as these pictures come in. Our viewers actually have a slight advantage over the people in the control room in that we can take the little pictures and blow them up to fill the entire TV screen. It's a pity you don't have a big TV screen like I do. But,
well, all I have is this scrunchy little monitor. Oh, there's some rocks. Okay, now, see this rock? It's all pebbly looking. Now, Viking had rocks the Viking images had rocks that looked much like that as well.
Yeah.
But then there's a rock beyond. I'm not a scientist, and so I'm just blithering here, but the rock beyond doesn't look to me like it's as rough. And what we want in this landing site is to have all kinds of different rocks. And I bet you we're going to get them.
Sand looks as if it's almost wind-blown there.
Right, it probably is. In fact, that looks like a little dust drift to me.
Right.
But again, we're not scientists, so I'll defer and let the scientists talk about what it really is.
Well, it is a fascinating picture, Donna. I'm looking at it as closely as I can here, and it looks sort of like a lava rock, like you might have in your garden, or if you went to Hawaii or someplace. Here's another picture. I think probably the other side of the same rock.
Yeah, that's the other side of that same rock.
Yeah, and it looks almost spongy. I don't know if that's what you said or not, but it appears to be lying on a beach with very fine powdery sand in this black and white view.
Right, well, actually, that's what the Viking 1 site looked like, and the Viking 2 site as well, is they had rocks like that with wind-blown sand that had blown up against them. And so, at least to first order, this doesn't look all that different than Viking, except the rock on the right looks to me lighter than the rock on the left.
How far away is this landing site, roughly, from the Viking landing site?
Oh, it's well over 1,000 kilometers. So it's really a long way away as planetary distances go. And we expect the terrain to be quite a bit different. We don't think that the Viking landing site, that's Viking 1, was in this river valley.
Now, Donna, you say in this
mostly crater.
Yeah, in this river valley. Any idea how long ago it was that a river was flowing down through this area of rocks here?
No, and that's okay. There's I don't know what that is. We really don't know. The best we can do is say that by age dating, that means by counting the number of craters. If there's fewer craters, that looks like a hole to me. It looks like something that's been...
A depression, kind of, yeah.
A depression. Now, maybe that's where the airbags dragged a rock out. That could be.
Uh-huh.
That's just a guess on my part.
Well,
there it is. I've lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
Well, that's what we're seeing in the picture.
The age of, the river.
The only way you can tell old things is on Mars because we don't have a piece back yet to age date. Okay, now this is a calibration target. See that circle? Mm-hmm. And so that's going to help the camera calibrate its color. And so that's why we're going to get the color to be right on those first color pictures.
Sort of like in TV. We point our camera at something white and push a button and it gets all the other colors right.
Right, and this is sort of the same sort of thing. Now, the age of the river valley that we're in is not... Wow!
Look at that.
Look at that. Oh, that's great. Oh, look at all those rocks.
Looks like Arizona to me.
Sojourner's going to have a field day. This is just beautiful.
What is that?
Oh, look at that. There's a flat top rock.
Flat top rock.
Wow.
This is amazing.
This is amazing.
Now, Donna, this looks like a piece of airbag over here.
Yep. That's what they're really trying to do is take pictures of airbags, but every now and then they goof up and get a really nice rock picture.
Wasn't that spectacular? I mean, it really did. It looked like Arizona with little tumbleweeds and things. Obviously not tumbleweeds, but ooh, look at this.
There's another one. Oh, wow.
There's something. See that rock? That looks like a big one.
Oh, my gosh.
Another
That's
one
a
here,
big one.
and
Now,
three
see,
or four
there's
here.
your airbags. Airbags save this.
Yeah.
If we tried to land propulsively in this area, we would have been creamed.
Apparently, we were not creamed.
Nope. Tom Rivellini and his crew really did their job. And ILC Dover, I should mention that ILC Dover was the contractor that built the airbags for us.
When I talked to Tom Rivellini this afternoon, he had said to me, he says, I wasn't worried about the airbags. I was worried about everybody else's systems. I knew they'd work, he said. And they did.
Yep, they did. Really remarkable. They were the thing that was making everybody nervous. You know, everybody call in and say, oh, those airbags, isn't that dangerous? But it looks to me like they just worked perfectly.
The landscape shot showed some
Well, the pictures keep on coming. This is, boy, you know, I'm going to be able to tell my 4-year-old that I was here on this night. Now, look at this flat rock here.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
A huge rock. A
went
flat
away.
rock. Oh, my gosh.
I don't know if this is a rock or an airbag,
Flat
this
rock.
piece here.
Oh, you know, gosh, that's just, I don't know, that's airbag.
Yeah.
That's airbag.
But that quick picture of the flat rock, it looked like sandstone almost.
It was incredible.
weathered on the
Now,
top.
we know that what happened was that these rocks got dragged downstream, and so it could be that they got dragged so hard that it abraded the top of them off, or it could be that they were actually from a flat part of the terrain and were kind of floated down. And so we just don't know. Boy, are the scientists going to have fun with this.
I was going to say, this area is going to be a
There's
field
gonna be-
day, isn't it?
Yes, there are going to be happy, happy, happy scientists.
And it'll take years to figure out what all this means, right, Donna?
Yes,
I mean, they'll
yes,
be
it
looking
will.
at this, and people will do their doctoral theses on things like this.
For years and years. Now, we have actually, with the Viking data, they spent 20 years analyzing it. And we can spend 20 years analyzing this data, too.
Whoa,
You
look
can
at this.
rewrite everything.
Look at this, you guys.
Oh,
Does that look like a hill or
wow.
what
See,
is
there's that flat rock again.
it almost looked like the contour of
Yeah.
the land was going up.
Well, that's what they thought they might actually be able to see, is, you
A
know,
rise
something
in the
rise in the
distance.
distance, yeah. Now that looks like a wheel. Oh no, I think that's the APX. I think that's the spectrometer on the back of the Rover, but I'm not sure.
Oh, that's the sniffer. No, there's a wheel. You can see
there's a wheel. Okay.
the central area
Looking
in
good.
that.
There's no airbags on top of anything. You know, the wheels look really good. I can't see the restraints.
They're cheering.
We're getting cheers. Is that cheers from Mission Control or cheers from
the Planet Fest. I can't tell. We're hearing
Okay.
things from all over right now.
Oh, wow. There's Sojourner. Look, you can see the little teeth on the wheel. And
Yeah.
the rocker
bogey.
bogies are looking good there. Yeah, that's the little teeth. That's what somebody's pointing out.
Yeah, I'm working the little illustrator.
John with his
back
Oh,
here.
that's John. Okay, okay. And then the rocker bogey is that thing full of holes. Okay, there's another one.
Yeah, all
Boy, I
right.
wish we had better light.
Coming soon.
That's the wheel again.
Yeah, that's the wheel again. You're right. With the axle, the shiny part with the axle.
There's two wheels, Donna. There's one visible there and one visible there.
Yep. Looking good.
Same picture
Now,
again, I think.
When the rover gets off, then we'll be able to take similar pictures of the lander from the rover,
Yeah.
which will really be cool.
We're currently seeing
Okay,
some
there's some of the tracks. As the long skinny thing is the tracks.
Oh, that's the
Rover sitting on
red
the
carpet that will roll
Right.
out for it. Yeah.
Well, I do not believe they have unrolled the ramps yet, and
No.
I can't really spot the ramps.
Well, they wouldn't do that until they were sure that the bags were out of the way, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Donna,
right.
what are
So
these things?
pictures-
Look like dominoes. Can you tell me? It appears they're on the
You
edge
know,
of the airbag.
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I don't know what those are.
Hope they're from Earth.
Oh, yeah, they are. I'll guarantee. Okay, now there's nothing for Earth. That's from Mars. And there's a long, wow. Boy, I wish I could see these better. Would you guys get better monitors, please?
Yeah. With all the money we're making on this, Donna Shirley, we'll get you a big TV for the
All right,
future.
get me a big TV. Yeah, I want a great big monitor.
There's
Okay, now
there's
what
some
is
more of
that?
these domino-looking
Yeah.
things.
Okay, well that must be part of the structure. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. When it's put all together with the rest
See,
of them, I'm sure.
and I
we'll
don't know
that.
what those spoke-looking things going on out
These.
either because I can't quite see. You know, I don't know the perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what those are.
Okay. As the pictures continue to come in, Donna, we're going to take a quick local cable break, and we'll be back at the top of the hour with more of this. What a night. We are seeing history being made, ladies and gentlemen, from the surface of planet Mars, live pictures being beamed back to Earth. Pretty soon they'll be put together in one big old beautiful panoramic view of the planet. And we'll be here to bring the whole thing to you as the evening continues. Stay with CNN.
News and information are essential.
The following is CNN's coverage of a live event.
Looks like the journey is over. I'm Leon Harris here at the CNN Center in Atlanta.
It's a pretty exciting day here today. I'm Joey Chen. It started with a bounce, a roll, and a great whoop of excitement. John Holloman has been following up all the activities here today as we've been following what the Pathfinder's finding on Mars.
A historic day.
I mean, we need to bring our viewers up to speed here, so I will read a few words. Shortly after landing, the Pathfinder started sending radio signals back to Earth, letting its handlers know the lander was okay. And then about 30 minutes ago, we started getting these pictures. They're being beamed down as fast as the Pathfinder can send them back down to planet Earth. These are rock formations near the planet Mars. And this picture is just coming down. We've seen a picture similar to that in the past few minutes. The folks at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory describe these pictures as being postage stamp size. We are lucky at CNN. We have a machine that will blow up a postage stamp to fill your TV screen, and that's what we're doing with these things as they come in. What will happen over the next 30, 40 minutes is all of these small pictures will be stitched together electronically, and then, look at that. Isn't that something? That's a Mars view, and if you look up in the upper left-hand corner, sort of on the horizon, there's a hill. That's going to help them orient which way the Pathfinder is pointed, because they, on the earlier big, wide pictures of Mars, they were able to see things like that hill.
So they did identify that particular hill?
They haven't yet, but they will be able to, almost certainly.
Now, John, does the Pathfinder look for the pictures in any particular order? It just swings around and takes arbitrary angles?
The thing that these pictures are being taken for has very little to do with looking at the surface of Mars. It has to do with making sure everything on Pathfinder is working. It's mostly to check the airbags, to make sure they've deflated and gotten out of the way, and to check the various pieces of Pathfinder, the wheels. There's a series of devices that cause it to raise up off of the point where it's sitting, and just occasionally what they will do is send down these fabulous pictures of the Martian surface. That's going to tell them where to send Pathfinder. Right above the word news on your screen right now is a flat rock. Why is a rock on Mars flat? Scientists are going to be worried about that for a while. There are a couple more that are somewhat flat. And you can see out here in this area, there's a whole bunch of very large rocks.
Good-sized boulders.
Yeah, pretty good-sized boulders, based on where the camera is and the kinds of things it is able to see.
Now, do you know how many of these postage stamps they need to put together one picture?
A couple, I think it's about 100, and they have sent in almost 100. So what they're going to do with them is take them, get them together, make them into a mosaic, sort of like a mural, put together from a bunch of little small paintings. And it's a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle, but as soon as the puzzle is together, we will see actually two separate pictures from this. The first picture will be a narrow angle view looking just down at the Rover, the Sojourner. And the second picture will be this bigger panoramic picture, the suck in your breath picture. And we've been seeing the little pictures of that, like this piece right here. Lower left of your screen is a piece of the airbag. And so they can say, well, that's an airbag picture. And then you see this. These are being apparently sent back in different wavelengths. It looks like the same picture in different lighting, but it's just based on how they're taking the picture.
Well, I know this may be the first wave of photos, but have you heard any gasps of surprise yet?
I have, from among other people, Donna Shirley, who's the head of the Mars Exploration Program for NASA. Donna, you and John Zarella are just looking at these as I am, and Leon and Joey, and our millions of viewers around the world right now. Gasps of surprise. What's the most surprising or most exciting thing you have seen so far in this picture show?
The most exciting thing is the stuff on the horizon. Viking was and both Vikings were landed deliberately in a very boring place so that it would be flat and safe.
There it is right there.
Okay,
It looks like hills in the distance.
Yeah, and the hills in the distance, Viking couldn't see anything like this. And in fact, we saw one that's obviously a hill on the other side of the horizon. So this is extremely exciting because this is actual topography that's nothing like Viking saw. And in fact, is much more like the Channel Scablands in eastern Washington that are the analog for this. And that will help us learn about what happened at this place.
You can see in the corner of almost every picture, John, almost in the corner of every picture, you can see the outline of a hill or a mountain in the distance.
Right,
Fabulous.
really spectacular.
Yeah, it looks kind of like Arizona, New Mexico, something like that to me. But when you did your analysis, you thought eastern Washington is what you'd be seeing, huh?
Well, eastern Washington is where these giant floods happened 13,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And they ripped rocks out and carried them downstream and left these islands, like we saw in when the pictures we were looking down on the landing site. Remember, we saw those stream-shaped features? Those are islands, and they stick up. And I think what we must be seeing is some of those islands, because where we landed, we know from the last press conference that those red circles in the picture where you're looking down at the landing ellipse, those circles showed features that we should be able to see sticking up above the horizon. And sure enough, we're seeing features.
Yeah, let me ask you quickly, if I can, about that landing ellipse, for folks who might be just joining us this particular hour. How close did Pathfinder come to actually hitting exactly ground zero where they were aiming at?
Well, certainly within a few tens of kilometers.
Well, they had already said this was a hole-in-one where you landed. It was like hitting a golf ball at JPL and putting it in the cup in Houston.
Right.
So
only you get four. You get 4 strokes. And so it was a birdie.
That ain't too bad. That ain't too bad.
Not too bad. It was perfect.
No.
I mean, everything has been perfect about this mission.
Now, Donna, there are people now in your control center at JPL looking at these pictures with 3D glasses.
Right, that's Brian Cooper. He's the Rover driver.
Yep. Okay. Now, what is he seeing in 3D that we can't see on television?
Okay, what he's seeing is three-dimensional. Those goggles he has on are 3D goggles. And he is seeing these first pictures, and he's trying to figure out whether the airbags are nice and flat and tucked in or whether they're sticking up. And when we just look at that with our bare eyes with a regular monoscopic television set, it's very difficult to get scale. With these 3D goggles, he can actually see the scale, and he's going to determine whether it's safe or not to deploy the rover ramps. That's his job at this point.
And John, he was telling me the other day that he will be able to place his mouse and click on the mouse, move the rover where he wants it to go, and then the rover will go there.
That's right. What he does is actually, in order to direct the rover where to go, his mouse can leave lawn darts. He leaves little icons of lawn darts. So he puts lawn darts where he wants the rover to go, and he based on the rover icon. So he's got all kinds of tricks he can do with that workstation. Brian, incidentally, wrote all the software for that workstation. He's the guy who programmed the workstation.
It sounds like he's got great mobility on this thing when he is able to start moving it. I mean, what will he direct it toward? Are you aiming at a specific target, specific things that you want to see?
The scientists are going to be going bananas because there's so many targets. They're going to be, clawing and scratching and fighting each other to choose the target. Actually, they're not. They'll be very civilized. But there were so many fascinating targets in there that the scientists have different areas of interest. Like, say, some are interested in sediments, and some are interested in volcanoes ejecta, and some are interested in crater ejecta. And so they're going to be arguing about which rock to send the rover to.
John,
they decide.
Yeah. There are people all over the country and all over the world who are watching this. The National Space Society has taken over the Planet Hollywood nightclub restaurant in Washington, D.C. There are big screens there. Karen Rugg is there by one of those big screens, and it has a pretty big crowd. Karen, thank you for joining us. It's nice to see you. What's the atmosphere like that? Is it just wild and crazy?
Well, it's wild and crazy right now, John. We've got a restaurant filled with people. Some of them knew what was happening today. A lot of them were really thankful we put the images up here at the restaurant. I've been talking with couples from all over the world, and they're sitting there going, this is the neatest thing, and every time someone there says wow, you know, they say wow also. But we're happy that we could bring the images here tonight.
Right, looks like a very big crowd and an excited and interested crowd. I've been to Planet Hollywood in Washington, and usually people are in their own booths doing their own thing with liquid refreshment, but people seem to be up and around and looking at stuff behind you there.
Yeah, actually the people, when the first images came up, and we've got at least 15 very large screens here, and when the first images came up in the bar, everyone stopped drinking and they were taking pictures of the images on the screen in the bar, and you know, people are stopping eating and watching and asking questions of the National Space Society people we have located here throughout the restaurant. More of them are going to come here later tonight. We didn't expect everything to go as smoothly as it did today, as we found out. So we're still waiting for some people to arrive before the fireworks go off here in Washington.
Yeah, and the fireworks show in D.C. is about an hour away now. But we're going to go back, Karen, and let you and the people at Planet Hollywood look at these pictures as they come in from Mars. We've got a couple of different things that are going on. The rover driver is apparently sort of plotting his rover on the computer screen as he looks around at the first images to come in and gets ready to drive the rover off of the Pathfinder lander. Yeah, he's looking at the ramp that the rover will be traveling down. And from here, at least, the ramp looks pretty good. I couldn't tell if that was a simulation or the ramp is beginning to roll out. Donna Shirley, do you know at this point?
Well, when the ramps roll out, they roll fast.
Yeah.
It's not a beginning. They just go kerplunk. They're just like the children's toys, the party toys that you have at New Year's. You blow on them, and it goes zoop. Except they don't operate with air. They operate because they're spring steel, and once you release them, then they just unroll all by themselves.
Now, let me ask you something.
With, yeah,
I'm sorry, Donna. This is Leon back in Atlanta. I heard you earlier talking about this picture we're seeing right now. You were saying something about this picture being used to calibrate the cameras for the color. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about that and when we can expect to see some color pictures coming back?
You're going to be seeing the color pictures at about 6:30. The way everything is going, they should be coming back just about at 6:30, which is when we expect them.
Hour and a half from now.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. We're going to take a quick break. The pictures continue to come in from the surface of planet Mars. The experts are there, and people are looking at them from all over. We'll take a little break. We'll come right back and show some more. Quite a night. All right. Stay with us. How about this? Our journey to the Red Planet, which we gave maybe 50-50 odds of being a success, is a big success. It continues. We're going to go around the country, go around the world, get reaction to this. This is Mission Control for the Pathfinder project in Pasadena, California, where they're now beginning to mosaic the various pictures together. This is a picture from the Planet Fest in Pasadena, California, where there's a crowd of about 600-800 people who are looking at the pictures coming in from Mission Control just across town at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We also have big screen TVs arrayed at other spots around the United States. There's one in Washington, D.C., where Karen Rugg of the National Space Society is standing by with reaction from her location. Karen, there were a lot of these pictures that came in. What did you think as you saw the first one and some of those terrific panoramic shots of Mars?
We thought it was absolutely tremendous. I mean, the quality and the resolution of the images, and as everyone there was commenting on the types of rocks that we were seeing and the types of material around those rocks, everyone here was asking, what are we looking at? What are we looking at? And especially also when we saw the airbags deployed. I mean, it's so exciting. And the fact that they came in so quickly and there were so many of them. I mean, what a change from 20 years ago.
No kidding. Remember the first Viking pictures? They kind of unscrolled line by line by line across the TV screen, and it was kind of funky. You had to, it was like a slow-speed computer versus high-speed computer, you know?
We have our online manager here, and he has his computer hooked up to an ISDN line here in the restaurant, and he's down in a corner. We're going to meet him a little bit later, and he's got some of the images up at the same time, and he's surfing the web and taking a look at what's there. He's got people looking over his shoulder, and they want to know what's going on. They want to know more about the mission. So there's a lot of information exchanging going on here. We're going to try to beat the celebrations we saw earlier at Mission Control, but we're not sure if we can do that.
Karen, good luck. You have to do a lot of hugging and squeezing if you're going to do what they were doing in Mission Control at the JPL. Okay, John Zarella, Donna Shirley are standing by in Pasadena, where it's still a beautiful sunny day. I hope it's gotten a little cooler for you guys. It was really hot there, middle of the day.
We moved under the shade. I've got to tell you, John, that they're doing a tremendously brisk business here right now, selling souvenirs, T-shirts, and this is the hottest item anywhere in town right now. It's a Hot Wheels that took about 4 or 5 months to design, and your design engineers worked on this. And
hold it up a little higher,
it's amazing.
John. Let's see if we can get close to it.
You can see it there. I'll hold it. I'm shaking. I'm so nervous with how exciting the day has been so far. But it's tip it down. Tip it down. There you go. You can see it's got a lander, and it's got the rover, and it's got the back shell. And they can't keep these in stock here in Pasadena. They've gone through thousands and thousands of them. And I understand that there's a limited edition one made in like silver coming out in them.
It's gold, actually, 24-karat gold plated on a silver base.
I've been looking.
Just can't keep them in stock.
Yeah, I've been looking for this particular item for about 3 weeks, ever since I knew that all of us were going to be working together. I went to
What's
every.
What's it worth to you, John?
We'll negotiate off the air, John. You know, Jay Holloman has a birthday coming up in about 5 days, and we need to talk.
Yeah. Well, now that Pathfinder has worked, these things are really going to be popular. They ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah. John, you know, one of the amazing things that Don and I watching these pictures, the really fascinating thing of these hills and mountains in the distance, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah, oh, it's just spectacular.
Hey, Donna, let me interrupt you. Look at the TV set over there, and this is
that's Brian.
That's Brian. It looks to me like the ramps are out.
No, this is a simulation.
Right now,
and this is showing what it will look like if the ramps are unrolled. And what he's going to do is to take this picture now and try to place it in the scene so that he can see whether when the ramps are unrolled that they'll be okay.
Oh, so he's just testing.
This does not mean that the ramps have, he's just testing. He's practicing. Okay. And the wonders of modern computer science are that we can actually simulate all these things, and we don't have to just fire blind. We can actually simulate what it's going to look like.
They're actually unrolling. It looked as if they were unrolling a little bit there.
Right. No,
yep,
see,
there it is.
There they go. But that's just a computer simulation.
Right, correct.
And he can take the data that was sent down earlier and unroll those things over the real data from the Martian surface.
That's what you're seeing right now.
That's what he's doing right now, John.
That's what he's showing right now, is he's now going to simulate what these ramps look like when they deploy. I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well from his screen.
It's fascinating, and we're getting a pretty good view because our crew out there at JPL is zooming in on the TV set or the computer monitor to let us see just what Brian is seeing. And,
now it looks very fuzzy to us because it's a 3D display, and we don't have 3D goggles, so it's going to look kind of funny and fuzzy. Also, he does these mosaics, these frames. He does not attempt to join them up seamlessly because then they would get distortion. So it's more important that they be accurately reflect where things are than they look pretty. They don't
Periodically, he lifts his glasses and then he puts them back on. Why does he do that?
Well, that's kind of so he can get the perspective of where he is. It just helps him see the stereo better once he's seen what it looks like without it. Kind of like
there's his lawn darts that you were talking about. He's got a whole bunch of lawn darts there.
That's right. He's got lawn darts.
Explain that to us again, Donna. Those lawn darts are for what?
Okay, all those lawn darts is Brian's really cute way of marking where things might happen on the surface. So once he puts in a lawn dart, it just gives the coordinates of that point on the surface. His Silicon Graphics workstation gives the coordinates of that point. And the lawn darts are just his way of being able to visualize where that point is exactly. And where they penetrate the apparent ground or the apparent plane of the ramp in this case is where the coordinates get read out. So there's Brian without his goggles.
Well, he's a nice looking guy without goggles, isn't he?
He is.
We are, by the way, to let everybody know, we're not getting any more pictures down from the surface of Mars right this minute. As pictures were coming in a few minutes ago, we recorded them on tape, and I think it's probably going to be possible for us to play back some of that videotape with the great pictures from Mars on it as soon as we can get it together here, and maybe we can look at them at greater length than we were able to when they were coming down live, because some of the great panoramas were only there for a second or two. Yeah.
By the way, what you're seeing here is scientists. Those are scientists. Remember I told you the scientists were all going to crowd around the TV screen and argue about which rock to go after?
Yep.
There they are.
That's what they're
doing.
It
right in front of you.
Well, there's one guy looking the other way. I think he may be a reporter.
No, there's no reporters up there.
All right.
I had heard, Donna, there'd be about 100 scientists in this room in Building 230,
Yes.
not far, about 100 of them in here.
Packed in like mackerel.
It is not a big room, John, by
No,
any
it's
stretch
not.
of the imagination.
And so we don't have any room for reporters, even if they're very thin. We don't have room for them.
boy,
Not if they're John's size.
No,
for sure.
that leaves me out for sure.
Yeah.
I see Wes Huntress from NASA, the assistant
Right, well, he
administrator.
counts because he used to be a scientist before he was an administrator, so they let him in.
There's another one of those first photos, but we've seen those before. That's
Right.
the
Now,
wheel again.
Well, look down, though, here. See the circles with
The circle in the middle, John.
the red circle, and
That
you see
tells
how
where
there's
it's
a little
pointing, right?
wedge? That tells where the camera's pointing. So you're getting a lot more information now than we were before. I'm not sure what the run on the right is, but okay, so when you see a picture and then you see the display down below, that shows where the camera is actually taking that picture. And that helps them with the mosaicing. It also helps Brian visualize. Oh,
All right, listen,
wow, that's beautiful.
that's fabulous. We're going to come back and look at more of these, Donna. We've got them on tape and got them ready to play back for you, and we'll be able to keep them up on the screen a little longer than they were when we got them in live. But we're going to take a break first and get our act together, ready to do that. Stay with CNN. We'll continue with our return to the Red Planet in just a moment. Our interplanetary picture show continues with John Zarella and Donna Shirley at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. We're going to continue to show you the pictures, Donna. We'll slow them down. You and John talk in our final moments here, and we'll remind our viewers that 65 minutes from now, we'll be back with a NASA news briefing with the first color picture from Mars. If we get the color picture ahead of that, we'll come back earlier. And then 2 hours and 4 minutes from now, all of us will come back together for a half-hour special, showing you everything we've been able to gather so far today on this fabulous, mind-bending story. Donna, John.
We've been looking at these photos, John, and able to see the mountains in the distance, and now the close-ups, Donna, of the rocks.
Right, it looks like there's some sand drifted around the rocks, very much like what Viking saw. These little dunes.
One looks lighter than the other, actually, doesn't it?
Right,
there?
it does. Now that could be because it is lighter. It could be because the camera's got a different sun angle. It could be because there's dust on one of them and not on the other. So we really won't know.
There's that hill in the far distance. It's
a mesa in the far distance, and that could be one of these streamlined islands. And it also looks like there's a kind of a hill over to the right.
Now it's not likely that Sojourner can get that far away, is it? You don't know.
Not easily.
Not easily.
That mountain could be 10
a
miles away.
long ways away. That's right. That's right.
So we'll be very happy if Sojourner just gets to some of those absolutely luscious.
There's one that looks like the flat, a
now,
flat
see,
rock
this,
formation.
This may not be a flat rock. What it may be is a dike, what they call it. It's a little trail of sand. And that looks to me more like a trail of sand, but I'm not a scientist. Now, this thing in the foreground, this white thing, is definitely.
Doesn't it appear, there's no question there is going to be a wealth of opportunities for the geologists to look at those.
Rocks. Now, there's a kind of a flat-looking rock, but see, those are perfect. Those are just the kind of rocks that Sojourner can get the spectrometer on, and without even having to travel very far. Now, this would be very difficult for Sojourner to go.
Look at that.
Donna and John, we're going to have to wrap this up for a little while, but we've got more pictures expected. We've got the big color picture 60 minutes from now. We'll come back and share that with you. And then 2 hours from now, all of us, including astronaut Story Musgrave, who joined the space program to walk on Mars and hasn't gotten a chance to do that yet, will be with us to offer his thoughts as we continue with our live coverage of this very remarkable journey to planet Mars. For Joey Chen and Leon Harris, I'm John Holloman. Thanks for being with us. It ain't over yet. More great pictures coming from Mars.